check,
all
check.
right.
Titty. How you feel my titties?
What about my titty?
What about his titties?
Is it
what
good?
about my titties? I'm Mario Barth. I've been tattooing 40 plus years, and I want to say how long.
I'm Sean, founder of Club Tattoo and drummer for Grey Days. And
I like that we both don't want to talk about us. He doesn't want to talk about him. I don't want to talk about me. We
Now-
don't like each other, really. We just talk about each other so we can fight afterwards.
You'll never be criticized by someone who is doing more than you. Hate is always going to come from the bottom. Throughout my whole career, I've been hated on by all different types of people, and I couldn't figure out why. Older guys, younger guys, they just didn't like what I was doing. But then I realized it's because I was doing things that were making them uncomfortable. I was doing things that they didn't want to try to do, or they wish they could do, but they couldn't get past their own mental blocks. So if you're receiving hate and it's affecting you, especially in this day and age of social media, you get hit with so much hate no matter who you are, even if you're doing something really positive. What you got to realize is they're always trying to punch up, which is just has nothing to do with you. It has no merit for you to give attention to. You need to stay on track, focus on what you're doing, and keep innovating and keep taking action. The reason these people are uncomfortable is because you're taking more action than them. And the people that are above you are only going to congratulate you because they know how it is to get to that point. And they might even collaborate with you rather than hate on you. So fuck the hate, right? Stay focused. What you're doing is the right thing, especially if it's making people uncomfortable. And you, one day, will be the guy at the top that gets to lend a helping hand or collaborate with someone who's going through the same thing. And you might even inspire them to do better. You might even inspire your haters to do better. Think about how powerful that is. So think about that next time someone sends you a hate comment, that you'll only be criticized by people that are doing less than you. Well, I guess we're already rolling now, so this is kind of cool. We could just flow right into it. So episode 6, this is actually I'm super excited about this episode. The fact that I could get both of you two fucking monsters in the industry is beyond me, that we could even make this happen. I know exactly who you guys are, right? I know I've watched your videos forever, and I've been a fan, and you've inspired me for so long, Sean. But just for the people that are watching that might not know exactly who you are, what you do, maybe just a quick little who you are, what you do. Let's start with Mario, that guy.
Sure. At least one person is excited here by us. It's like, I'm not excited to be here at all. So, no, I'm Mario Barth. I've been tattooing 40 plus years, and I want to say how long, because then people know my age, you know.
Yeah.
It's like, that's it. That's all I do.
Yeah, that's
What
it.
else you want to know
Literally
from me?
nothing.
We're going to come up with everything. What
he's the founder of Intense
There you go.
Inks, which is the most successful and incredible tattoo ink company in the world.
Innovative.
Can you keep going? Keep going.
He is a guitar player and singer for the band About Kings.
Yep.
He is one of my closest friends.
Nope.
No, I don't think you would agree with that.
One of my biggest enemies.
Yes.
Is that better? Okay.
Enemies, multiples.
He's definitely
Plural.
an inspiration for all of us here up on stage. So
Yeah.
I agree.
He's done a lot in this world. And
Now,
then I'm Sean. I'm founder of Club Tattoo and drummer for Grey Days, and yeah, I've done a few things.
You know
too.
what I like? I like that we both don't want to talk about us. It's
I-
like he doesn't want to talk about him. I don't want to talk about me.
Well, why
It's
don't you
like-
say a couple things about him?
Oh no!
Make it even.
All
Yeah.
right, we make it. So
Now you got a chance.
Sean is the owner of Club Tattoo. I think it's one of the most impressive chain of tattoo and piercing shops that I've seen in my life. Being in this business, trying to elevate it, I think he was the perfect competitor at the time when I started coming out, because he stepped right into the plate where I wanted to be,
Mhm.
like in higher class tattooing, real business.
Right.
Doesn't mean that regular tattooing is not business, but in that's the disclaimer, right? We have to watch now. Or can we do like no disclaimers? I can just say
Dude,
what
you
I
could
feel.
say whatever you feel,
All right.
and I know what you're talking about when you say that.
And incredible musician. I found this out a little bit later in our friendship, you know, which also turned into some other common denominators we had. So I think from that part, I mean, he's an entrepreneur, right? He's very good what he does in business outside of tattooing as well. I think, you know, he knows exactly what goes on in life with business and keeping his private life in tune with it as well, which is not easy for us sometimes.
It's not
right?
easy.
We have to take care of our image, right? We have to take care of who we are, who we represent, who we want to be, and what we represent, right?
Sure.
The tattooing industry. So to juggle all these elements and then trying to step out of the common safe ground what the most people are in, right? It's
Right.
I think he was definitely one of the first people in the industry to actually do that. So that's what I have.
Yeah. Now hug, and
Thank
then
you.
everything is
No, no. F no. No. We
Now-
don't like each other really. We just talk about each other so we can fight afterwards.
That's the best kind of relationship in my experience. But now that you guys have said some nice things, let's talk about how you guys first met, since I both have you here. And I know this is a funny story because, Mario, you started telling me this off camera, but we had to save it for the podcast. So why don't you give me a little exclusive on how you guys first met?
You want his story or my story?
Oh, I don't know. You were about to go in when
So,
off camera.
do you want his story or the truth?
Oh,
It's like a relationship, you know. It's like we never know whose stories.
Well, we both have different perspectives,
Yeah.
but let's hear yours first.
yeah. Let's hear yours, and then tell you what. Chime in if there's anything you're like, you
Okay.
know what? That way we can
Fuck
get it.
you. Yeah, that's okay. No, so what happens is obviously we both are in Las Vegas, right?
Mhm.
With high-end stores in high traffic area, and we try to always have the top of the line artists. And I think I was pretty early on, and you tried to put some people on non-compete, special on the strip, not outside
Sure.
of the strip, but basically when you work in a casino, right? You have all that elevated income and the elevated responsibilities in a casino. So I had one employee which decided to go to the biggest competitor,
Mm-hmm.
which was at the time Club Tattoo in Sean. And he was under a non-compete contract for that territory. It was a mile and a half, I think, at that time it was, right? Like, and they didn't take it serious that are gonna go after him. And I was like, yeah, absolutely, I will. So I went after the artist because he knew exactly that he can't go to that. Because at that time we were fierce competitors.
Sure.
You know, I mean, I have to say this: it was not. It was like as enemy as you can get. You know, from the side.
Yeah.
Not that we actively looked for it, but everything we did
It just
from a
kept
business.
clashing.
No, it was more like we always needed to be outdoing each other on what's the promotion, what's the. So it was not a clashing like per se because we didn't know each other personally.
Right.
So we only knew the businesses,
Mhm.
you know. I don't know how it was for him, but he will tell his side of the story then. And then, so what basically happened was is like I went after the artist, and then of course the only way to really get into and put my hook in the anchors in, I said like, okay, I want to see the books of Club Tattoo. And at that time, that
and he
was when
sued me.
yeah, so I didn't
There's the big
sue you.
one-liner.
I did not sue you. My attorney pulled you into the case. That's how I call it. No, but it's so basically what happened was is, and that's the truth. So he came up as a party of the lawsuit because I needed to see the books.
Right.
And I think, did you call me? Or how, I don't know that part really. I don't know. Did I
Well,
call
this
you?
part of the story is like a year and a half after we
Yeah.
actually, our first interaction. So I'm not honestly. I don't remember how we. You reached out and said, "I think we need to sit down and have a talk." We went. We had lunch over at the Win.
Yeah, right. That's the first time we met. So it's people who know me. Usually, if I have a issue, real issue, not just a regular issue,
Sure.
you will see me. It's face to face, you know. And Sean is the same way. I've learned this over the years. And then we sat down and we had breakfast or lunch
Yeah,
or whatever it was, right? And it was actually what 30 minutes.
Something like that.
It was it. And then we said like, hey, listen, this thing is off. We're gonna clear this up by us. I told him what the situation is. He says I have the same issues
Mhm.
because there's nothing more difficult, right? When we try to build a sustainable business in a high-profile area, right?
Right.
Like which is a casino.
Mhm.
When you change, the people want consistency there and safety. So they don't want to have 170 different thousand artists switching from place to place,
Right.
right? So, and he had the same feeling what I had, and then we shook hands, and I say, okay, I'll pull it out, and I pulled the lawsuit off, right? That was it, what I remember.
That easy, huh?
And it took what, a couple weeks, 3 weeks, I don't know.
Something like that.
Yeah.
I think more to the point was once we got in front of each other, we realized that we had a lot more in common than like we both had built this thing in our head of what the other guy was.
Mm.
And when we got across from each other, we spoke the same language. We really understood each other's perspectives and point of view. And I started to like him like right away. I was like, I really resonate with what he's saying and why he's saying it. Yes, I'm on the other side of it. That doesn't feel good, but we realized, I think, really fast that we didn't have to be enemies. There was kind of, I don't know if you've ever been involved with when you're growing up, and there's you have little cliques, and then there's the people that are not really maybe the main players in the cliques, but they'll kind of push and gossip and push the two biggest kids to kind of fight each other. And that's kind of the situation I think is similar for us. Is we really didn't have much against each other, but we had so many talking heads around us saying, well, Mario this and Mario that, and he had the same thing, Sean this and Sean that. And so we grew this disdain that was not really based on any factual anything. It was based on other people's feelings and insecurities. And as soon as we got in front of each other, we realized we're way too smart to be acting like this. This is stupid. Like,
Yeah.
And then we became friends. I'll fast forward maybe 6 months or so. He was putting on another event. I can't remember. It was a convention or a party or something. And I just reached out. I said, hey, do you need any help? Is there anything I can do? And I think there was something he was like, yeah, do you have sound or lights or whatever it was? I was like, yeah. And I went down there and we just talked. And I think from that moment, then that's when I found out he was a musician. And
I was going to ask that. At what point did you guys figure that you had that in common too? Because that probably made it even like, wow, like we have so much in common now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what it was. It was his big tattoo convention here in Vegas. And I brought out my crew in support. And he threw a really cool pre-party, and I showed up and just basically showed him, look, I'm here to support you, not throw rocks at you. And I think he respected that. And we just became fast friends. And then every time I come up to Vegas, we try to just have lunch or dinner. And the more we got to know each other, we really found ourselves based in a very similar perspectives on business and how we view the world. And then we started playing the little side project bands together. And
we found out actually that for music, when we did the Sin City Reds project, right? That's when we found out that you actually play. Wasn't that the time?
Well, that's when you found out I actually played.
Yeah, I'm a little older. Take a little longer, damn it.
We played this little project band. We played for his opening party at one of the conventions. We brought in our friend Bob Tyrell, and Tony Rommel was there, and a couple other people, and we all just got on stage and played at this party and had the best time. Rehearsed for a few days beforehand and just really got to know each other a little bit deeper. And I think that musician camaraderie we shared really was even, I guess I'll dare to say this, was more of the binding thread for us than even the tattoo business, because I think there was also that stigma that I wasn't a tattoo artist.
Sure. So
maybe, and he's an old school guy. He's OG and he's respected by all the OGs. So I think there was that, and maybe I'm putting words in his mouth, but I think
better words than anything else. It's like,
oh God.
I think.
What the fuck is everybody laughing at here now?
I think to that point,
that was great.
He maybe had this predisposition to not have the respect for me because I was not an artist. And that's happened to me quite a bit over the years through certain cliques and people. And I find myself having to win people over on my merit. I have to get in front of them and have a real conversation. And they have to find out if I'm a genuinely intelligent human or not, and where my intentions come from. And I think Mario found that out quickly.
Yeah, I think a big part, definitely the music was the part what sealed it, right? It's like, because I think I could take it even a little bit further. It's not easy to deal with a piercer, right? Because that makes it even more worse. So if you're a person who doesn't tattoo and doesn't pierce, it's easier.
Yeah.
But if you have a person who doesn't tattoo and pierces, there's usually, piercers are their own, what I think in general, they're their own people, and they believe in what they're doing, and they believe that tattooists are all prima donnas, right? And the same goes in the contrary to the other side, right? So I think all those elements were played there, and then when the music came, it just became one piece, right? And at that time, we started going into, and we can talk about more what then developed off that. We decided then why we don't do a seminar together where we talk about objectives.
That's right.
What he thinks and what I think, and we took the same questions and Sean answered them how he would address them,
Mhm.
and then how I would address them, you
Right.
know, and then people got two perspectives. Some of them were similar, some were the same, some were completely different.
Right.
It's just from a personality trait, right?
Right.
Because I work differently than Sean works, but we look for the outcome. So how do I get there? It doesn't matter if I go around the wall left, right, or climb over it. I'll find my way, right?
That
And
was
I think
actually a
it's the same.
really unique experience. We decided to do a seminar together at one of his shows and sold it out. It was great. We had a packed room, and hearing him speak on certain topics that I would address completely different was eye-opening for me. And I think the participants really got a lot out of that. And I think we realized, God, we have a lot to offer each other. And then that ended up developing into a business relationship where he and I opened up a bar together called Drinked here in Las Vegas that
Oh,
we
wow.
still have. And
That's awesome.
That was our first. We have one foot in the little water paddle together, you know, in the
As
pool.
partners.
So as partners, and we try to. I mean, it's very. I think people have to understand too. It's great to have partners and do all that, right? But you can. It was a very difficult friendship to create from the prejudice mindset
Sure.
prior before we met. Then when you feel like there's a good friendship developing, the worst thing you can do is put a business situation in. You know, I mean, that's the worst.
100%.
It's like dating your best friend, right? And then
Yeah.
marry them, you know, then shit is going to hit the fan.
Yes.
It's like, so, and we started that, and we put both of our foot in, and we see how it is. And we started working on it, and we had some complications in between and rocky times. And I always said, it's like, a partnership only shows how strong it is when the shit hits the fan.
It's like a marriage.
Never
Same
when
thing.
it's
Exactly
great.
right.
Yeah.
Never when it's great. And it showed more and more every time when we ran into a hurdle, right? Like how we work together instead of working against each other or trying to have our own opinion. It was always put in the room. This is what we're looking at. What do you think? Okay, and then it's full support, right? And I think this is also that far. I mean, I don't know if you want to mention something, but we were talking several times to do something together in the tattooing and piercing section.
Sure.
Right? And
well, before we
that's-
get to that,
right.
just to touch on his point,
break.
we had some big problems that arose doing the bar, and watching how he handled adversity and how he remained calm,
Mhm.
kept his perspective, and never had a selfish point of view when we were dealing with like hey, we got to come up with another $200,000. He a lot of people would have been like, well, I'm not going to do it. He was like, all right, no problem. And it wasn't necessarily because the money was no object. Those were real dollars for both of us. But we both realized what we wanted out of this was a successful business. And if that meant either one of us had to put in more, not just financially, but time and energy and all these
Right.
ancillary things that we didn't necessarily sign up for at
Okay.
the time, he did it without even being asked. I did the same thing. And I think we both got a lot more respect for each other. And like, okay, this partnership's actually going to, even if this business fails, we know we want to do something else because we watched how the other one operated under severe pressure.
Yeah, and you actually have a lot of experience with that in the early days of Club Tattoo, where you had people that were all like, okay, we're going to be in on this, and then you were more in on it than them, and then they backed out. I know this from your book, and I was just listening to it again, so I know that in contrast, having experienced those type of partnerships where you're more into it than they are, and you're like, look, my money's up, I'm down, and then someone's like, yeah, I'm down, and then they just fall out of it, and they just don't. So this, by contrast, is like a good relationship, especially compared to what you had experienced before. Now, after you guys became friends and you had this beef between the tattooing and everything, and then you guys became friends, how did the dynamic between your guys' two shops change? Because were there still non-competes in place? How did you reconcile the fact that you guys were in the same city within the same vicinity after you guys are friends now?
Honestly, all those issues went away.
It just
literally
went away.
overnight. It's never even been
So
brought
no
up
more
again.
non-competes?
We actually send
No,
each
we
other
have-
artists now.
We have our own non-compete. You
Right.
know, we decide, we think, hey, listen, you need somebody, that's it. And it's easy. It's a phone call, it's an email, it's a text
Sure.
message. You say, hey, bro, I have somebody, you know, from your guys to
Oh,
look
that's
for
cool.
a job.
That's
or
cool.
it's like the same from us. When I need somebody, it's like, hey, I have 3 applications, check them out if one fits for you. So, and we have absolutely no issue. And I don't have any issues with my workers either anymore.
No,
Because
it's
they
gone
know.
away. Yeah.
They know it's just simple. You know?
And even so, I mean, that's even been tested a few times where one or the other will have an artist that'll very ignorantly send one of us an emails trying to get hired at the other shop. Hey, I'm not happy here, and right away pick up the phone. Hey, that's just the respect we have. Sorry, we're we're not even entertaining hiring each other's staff. That's
Sure.
just a non-starter. And B, now I have to tell him because he's my friend first.
Yeah.
And he does the same for me. But I think fast forward past all that, now we're actually talking about assimilating brands, and we're, I guess I'll just
I think
say
we're
it.
ready
We're,
to put the second foot in. I think we're working very diligently. Diligently, it's a freaking Austrian to me. I sound either way like Adolf or I don't know the word. It's like, so it's like we're
Yeah, go
working
ahead.
now. Pretty close with a specific project.
And this is new.
Very
brand
brand
new.
new. It's less than a week. Where
Oh, wow.
I mean, maybe want to address this because
Sure.
the town plays us out. They don't know that we have this friendship. They still see both of our shops.
In duality against each other.
Right.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like, so they're playing
And
each
they'll
other
approach
out.
both of us.
Separately.
Yep.
And then you guys talk because
Mhm.
communication is open. You're like, hey, did dude hit
Right.
you up? And it was like, yeah, he hit me
And
up.
we can even say this with your last shop because we got played out on that. Not
Yeah.
the last shop, the one before,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And this maybe is just to enhance the friendship what we have, and a lot of people should listen to this because I think for our industry, if more people would behave like that,
Yes.
we would have a stronger foothold and we would have a stronger foundation for moving forward.
Yeah.
right? We had a situation where we both got played out. I'm not saying which property it was, and he called me and he told me, "Hey, listen, this is the location. I'll get the location." He said, "What do you want to do? You were first." I said, "No, just take the location.
Mhm.
If he gives you the right deal, then take the location. I move out, I step out of it, and then we go from there." And then there was his second job, I think, right? Like over at the, because we were both working on the link at that time, and now we said it where it is. And then he opened up his third shop, and before he did something, he said, like, "Hey, listen, full disclosure, I have a shop coming. I'm gonna look at the location over at the Venetian." And I was like, "Go ahead, man." And then when he got the location, it was very interesting. I was on the opposite side. With my location, what I dealt with was right across, but same foot area, right?
Oh,
like 10 feet
wow.
about. So they played us out there too. And then we say, okay, so they fooled us twice. It's not going to happen on the third time. So now they approached us both individually. We started talking to each other a while ago, and we say, like, "Hey, listen, there's some situations." And he said, "I have an offer from there." I said, "I have an offer from there." And it's like, so we played it out till last week.
Yeah.
And then we finally told them, or we said, like, "Hey, listen, we're going to do this together. So you're going to get best of both worlds." And but we picked the best deals from both sides
Mm-hmm.
and put it in one deal and said, "That's our deal now. So if you guys want us, you can have us, but those are the terms."
So what
for
does
it."
that look like? How does that manifest? Is it one? This is where it gets like.
Oh,
is
we
it,
don't know yet, but we
Okay.
figure it out on the way. But I think there's no.
the big thing is
no-
the deal and all that. Now you figure out just how it all works and stuff like that, right?
No,
Because
we
how
know
does
how
that?
we know how it works.
We
He's
know.
holding
Okay.
back, but he can.
No, it's fine.
he'll
It's
share.
fine. If
No,
it's
no, you
brand
can
new,
go.
it's
fine. It's I don't know. You share.
listen.
Right,
It's
well, we're
very
gonna-
exciting for people to hear this stuff, and I know it's like very private between you guys
Yeah.
and stuff. But the fact that people can hear that big things are happening and giants are collaborating, like you said, it's better for the industry if they know that this is happening now. And even if you don't want to, if you could hide some details and all that, but I think it's really good, especially with this opportunity, let them know, like, hey, like even the biggest guys in the industries are putting their egos aside and they're creating something bigger and better, which means anybody that is even at lower levels should take notes and then build upon that, right? Because it's a better foundation to build upon. So whatever you guys want to share, yes,
The
I think
biggest
it's
part
awesome.
for that is for the industry. They really have to understand. You have to have how Sean's words. Full disclosure. When you
Yeah.
ever do this with a friend or with a partner or with you have to have full disclosure every single time.
Sure.
Even if you get one offer somewhere or something, you have to call in and say, "Hey, bro, I just got this offered. By the way, I have an offer, but I say this because I got it yesterday and I didn't
Uh-oh.
disclose it yet." But it's like you have to be honest to yourself and to your friends and to your partners.
Because the
and your
secrets
peers.
fester.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
You never want to guess if your partner is holding back.
Yeah.
And the more upfront you are, just the more respect you gain for the partner, because he doesn't have to do that. He doesn't have to tell me he got an offer. He could just do it. But let's unwind this just
Yeah.
a little bit. So what we're looking at doing is, and I have to give Mario credit for this, because he's the one that said, your business model is awesome.
Mm.
And he's done some incredible things in the tattoo business. I have massive respect for everything he's built. But he came on one of our sit downs. He said, "Look, we can do this together. I like your business model. Let's go with that." I'll tell you some of
Wow.
the details there. So I think what we're
Yeah.
going to be doing, everything's not done yet, but we're in the middle of opening up a new Club Tattoo location as partners, and going forward with the Club Tattoo brand, and Mario being a very big part of that, and being my partner in the scalability and growth of that. And I think on the backside of that is one of the reasons we're talking about the scaling our business models is because you do, and we're at the forefront of this, where we're having these private equity and these capital raising firms all around the world wanting to get their hands on the tattoo industry. Now, you've seen the supply side where they're getting into the supplies and
Yes.
the inks and the needles and all these other things. Now they're going out to the retail side, and they want to own up a conglomerates of 50, 100 to 300 shops and put them under one umbrella, one gigantic billion-dollar company. And we're kind of like, well, where does that leave all of these smaller shops?
Right.
It leaves them in a playground they can't compete in. So we
That's
want
Walmart versus the small guys.
yeah, and we don't want to be Walmart.
Yeah.
We want to maintain our, even though we have multiple stores, and I've heard people throw that cheap shot at us before, but I look at us a little bit more like John Barbados or Nordstrom's. We're a premium brand. Yes, we have multiple locations, but we still are core to our values. We're core to our mission statement. We're core to who we want to be and what we've become and what we're
Sure.
giving back to our communities. Those things are our primary objectives on how do we make this as good as it can be? How do we provide a great environment for our staff? And what do we give back? All those things matter to us. That's where I think we get away from that whole Walmart or Circle
Corporate
K. Yeah.
vibe.
Well, you can say corporate all you want, but we expect people to show up to work on time and to look the part and to be able to speak intelligently and give the clients a good experience. If that means we're corporate, then so be it.
Yeah, and I guess that people throw around corporate as a negative thing because
Yeah.
the way they see it. But if you ever build a business and then you start building infrastructure and systems, it naturally just happens like that. No matter what type of business you're in, you're going to have to, or at least the good businesses are going to set the standard right up front. Everybody agrees. Yep, I agree. This should run smooth as long as everyone holds up their part.
Yeah, I'm a little bit different in this, right? Like, because I feel like anytime you file for your tattoo shop and you file corporate paperwork, you're a corporation. So let's
Yeah.
just stop it. You
Yeah.
know, it's like, I mean, it's that simple. You know, it's like anybody say, oh, you're corporate, you're selling out because you have 3 shops or 5 shops or
Is
100
that their
shops.
thing? Because you have
It's a-
multiple shops, it becomes like,
Well,
Nah.
hold on. First of all, the haters are
there's
minute.
yeah,
And
Yeah.
I don't want to take this time, this awesome
Sure.
environment, to focus on the 3% of idiots that are jealous or hating, because we have tens of thousands of people that admire the things we've given back. So let's focus our energy on that conversation, because
Yeah.
if we listen to the loudest idiot in the room, we're going to be focusing on the wrong stuff. So let's focus on the positive things. This guy he's the only, and maybe this has changed since the facts that I was aware of, but he's the only guy that's actually went and fought the clearing of his inks to be legal in Europe. I watched it happen. I watched it unfold. They
Yeah.
basically were shutting down colors in Europe. He's the only guy that put his money where his mouth is, and a lot of money, by the way, to fight that and make sure his inks could still be used. I mean, that to me is something we should be talking about. Like, what are we giving back to our
Yes.
industry? And so many tattooers don't even realize that he is the only guy to have done that.
And see, that's a good point to bring up because I know a lot of even clients had saw very small snippets of that happening, and they see like a graphic on Instagram, and they're like, "Oh, inks are what? I shouldn't get tattooed anymore now because the inks are this and that." Maybe clarify a little bit what that situation was, and then what part you played in it, because I think that's huge for people to hear.
Yeah, I mean, it's still an ongoing situation, right?
Sure.
It's like there's a lot of stuff going on because people finally or think they figure out the tattoo industry
Right.
because so many people get tattooed, right? And the situation is it's always a shock and awe system, what I call, right? It's like every organization or every government agency who works in this throws the bombs out first, right? And puts the newspaper out and sets everybody up fear, right?
Yes,
Because that's a fear
yes.
factor situation.
100%.
It's like, and then
Well,
they're
fear's
gonna go-
easy to sell.
Right, it's the easiest
The
thing.
shock
We see
value
it
is
every single.
easier.
It's super simple, right?
Yeah.
Because the people which are uneducated gonna jump on it and gonna say like, "Oh, I knew it anyway,"
Yeah.
right? Like even there's not one. I'm saying this very, very strongly. Not one documented case where any of their claims have been proven.
Right.
Not, and I'm talking not in the United States. I'm talking worldwide.
Yep.
I have been on the res support, like in Europe, fighting for this for many, many years. I formed the Coalition for Tattoo Safety. In 2011, I've tried to bring all the pigment manufacturers together in one room. Before they walked into the room, we made them settle their lawsuits against each other. Before they walked into the room, we say, you're not going to walk into this room until you guys shake hands and settle your lawsuits.
Again, it's the partnership vibe. It's like you
But-
have to be transparent with each other and get all that cleared up first.
Yeah, and you can't walk into a room when you have a hidden agenda,
Yeah.
even though some people do, right?
Yeah.
Like some people, some leopards don't change their spots, right? They always, you have to accept it, who they are and what they're doing, and take the best out of it and try to work with them, and that's it.
Right.
We did that in 2011. We finally got them in the room. We formed the Coalition for Tattoo Safety so that the pigment manufacturer can sit on a table. At the time, it was 7 people, I think, 5 or 7. Unfortunately, it's very difficult in our industry, and I've said this for many, 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 many years. It's like the Achilles heel of our industry, regardless where it is because the people cannot get together and sit on a table and talk openly about what goes on, because
100%.
everybody has his hidden agenda, man.
And then mostly it's based on fear and insecurity.
Yeah.
There's very few times that you're going to have somebody criticizing you that is actually doing as much or more than you. It's very, very rare. And when it does happen, it's usually by somebody you respect, and they'll have come to you, not publicly, they'll come to you privately and share their thoughts with why it is they think whatever you're doing is not good. And you can have that relationship where you can be open and honest with each other. The internet warriors generally are speaking from insecurities when they lash out, you know.
Yeah, and then it's a way of voicing an opinion in a moment instead of understanding the time of experience, right? Like when people talk about when the headlines come out and then they're reacting to the headline.
Yeah.
They're not reacting to the 3 years of work prior.
They
what
lack
is already-
context.
It's like it's just that moment, right? And then it went that far that I have been chosen to add on to that from my part prior, that I'm the speaker on the most conferences and conflicts,
Sure.
and I was always on the forefront, which also makes me the biggest target.
Yeah.
So it's like, and I'm willing to take this because this is all I do, this is all I've ever done, and this is all what I will do to the rest of my day. I'm gonna die in a tattoo chair. That's what it is.
Yeah.
It's like
Or on stage.
Or on stage.
or on stage, either or. It hasn't.
Or speaking at a conference.
Speaking at
That
a
would be
conference. Now, most
legendary.
I get down a heart attack because I get pissed off about all the assholes on the other side. But so what happens is with this case is like, of course, I became the biggest target that far, even on a conference that I have been threatened to be arrested in Europe for not
Really?
giving them information what they wanted to have, and I'm like, I'm not giving it to you because I had to protect everybody else in the group.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just have to put your foot forward and say no. That's the biggest power we have. It's no. Our
100%.
industry doesn't say no. Our industry says yes, 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 and everybody tries to give everything to the government agency. So if you don't want to be corporate, let's talk about this for a moment to roll this up, then be who you really are. You be the tattoo industry and stick with your industry.
Sure.
Support your artists, support your shops, support your pigment companies. And if you go back into big corporate funding, hedge funds, right, if you're talking about, the only thing the hedge fund cares, and I will say this now publicly once, is a positive portfolio.
Yeah.
It's great that people buy out or sell out and listen, there's several people that worked all their life to get to a point that everybody should have an exit strategy, regardless if you own just a shop.
Yeah.
You should have an exit strategy to enjoy your life and the fruits of your work, what you did over time. But if you stay in it, you are part of a positive portfolio. If you are not, they're not going to give a shit who you are, where you come from, or what you do. They're going to drop that negative part of their portfolio.
Yeah.
That's what it is. Or they use it as a write-off, and they don't give a crap what you're going to do with your life. They don't give a shit if you feed your kids. They don't give a shit if you feed your family. They don't give a shit if you have health insurance. They're gonna turn their back because they have nothing to do with our industry. That's the difference.
And that comes back to the point where we talk about the contribution. Like, what are we giving back to the people who work in our industry, work for us, work with us? Are we going to leave? And I hate to use the word legacy, but are we going to leave a lasting legacy that has had some type of positive impact on the people that we surrounded ourselves with? That, I think, is important to both of us, and that's where a VC company, a private equity firm, there's no soul there,
Right.
and that's not their fault. It's just it's inherent in the way it's designed.
It's
It's
business.
not, yeah, it's not
Right.
bad. It's not necessarily a bad thing. But if we're trying to place a meaning or intention on what it is we're doing, that's why we want to grow the way we want to grow.
Right. And do you think that there is an optimum way to bring in outside money while still keeping the authenticity of we are the tattoo industry, we want the best for this? Is there a way that we could do that to grow the industry without faulting all the pureness that we're trying to hold on to?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. 100%.
And that's what you guys are trying to do.
Yeah.
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 And it has to be structured in a proper way, right? Because it's if it's not really deep in your soul, right? Like that, this is what you want to do for the rest of your life. Then you deviate on other people's
Sure.
information, right? What they give you, and like everybody has an advice, but nobody's really here, right? Like that's what I always say. Everybody wants to tell you what to do, but
And my favorite is, well, you know what I would have done?
Yeah.
And you know what I usually say? Most of the time, you would have done nothing, or you would have done it.
Yeah.
So shut the fuck up.
Yeah, and it's so easy for someone to look out from the outside in and be like, oh, I would have done this. And not being in that position, they can't even fathom the perspective change that would happen if they were in that position.
yeah, it's like going to a UFC fight, right? Advertising, sorry, and everybody's a fighter, right? Oh, left, oh, right,
Oh,
oh, why
dude,
the hell?
yeah.
Oh, whoa, you know, and then
The
end
armchair
result-
quarterbacks are endless
Yeah.
in business. You know, I
It's-
would have done it. No, you wouldn't have.
Yeah.
You haven't. You've done nothing up to this point. So, what makes you so confident that you would have made that decision based on what we knew at the time? You know, we're not shooting from the hip when we're. I've made some huge mistakes. Huge
Yeah.
mistakes. I lost a $2 million store in San Francisco,
Mhm.
and I've had people
Most
go,
beautiful store in the world, by the way. I called you from there, right?
Yes,
I
you
was.
did.
It's when it was open. I walked in. We at that time did not.
did not like each other.
I'm
Didn't
so
like each
sad I
other.
haven't. I'm so sad I didn't get to experience that before
Yeah.
it closed. But go ahead.
It was a beautiful
But
store.
I
was
walked
very
in. I
proud
said,
of it.
"This was the most beautiful store I've seen in my life." I'm like, and that's the truth, you know.
Thank you.
And you know what it is? It's like there was a great scene in a movie Troy, which always sticked with me. Did you ever see that? Where the father came out after he killed his son in front of it, and he shook his hand and he said,
Yes.
like you can always respect your enemy, you know.
Yep.
And that's really, I think, what makes things work sometimes. Maybe I'm older too, you know.
Well,
I'm not
it's the
as
ground rules, and
bitchy
that,
anymore, you know.
it's the ground rules. I think, you know, and as we've gotten older, unfortunately we become kind of parodies of our younger selves. Are like, you know, well, back in my day, you know, people had respect for each other, and I think that's what we honor about each other in doing business together. Is we like to surround ourselves with like-minded people. And it's kind of cool getting to talk to you beforehand. I see a lot of similarities in the way you look at the world. Is the way we kind of operate as well. That is an attractive thing to me, and my circle is very small.
Right.
I don't need 500 friends. I have 500 people that I know, but I don't have 500 friends. I got about 7 friends,
Sure.
and I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
Because they hold the same basic core values and operate in a very similar way to the way I think, and I'm fine with that. I surround myself with like-minded people who are honorable humans. That
And then-
matters to me.
And then we don't have a roadmap. I mean, we have to throw this out too. People always talk about what we do, right? It's like, but we don't have a roadmap. We don't.
Yeah, we've kind of invented along the way.
There's no one in front of you that's leaving the crumbs for you to
Well-
pick up and then be like, oh, this is great. I'm going to follow your path. It's like when you're being the innovator, I've learned that it's a very lonely path, right? Because when you're in this mode, it's hard and no one has really took these steps, or at least the people that you know. You're getting outside opinions, which I've gotten a lot of, and I've taken advice from people that have never done stuff like this before, and they were just so confident in their advice, so I took it, wrong advice, and I had to learn it the hard way. And then it's like really cool to see you guys together, because it's like the energy between you guys. I just never felt that between me and someone else, or this, because it's such a competitive nature amongst everything. And even people that I would consider mentors turned on me just for their own egoic takes on it.
That's unfortunate.
And that hurts, because, you know, they say never pedestalize your idols and stuff, because they'll fall real hard from that pedestal. And it's like, it sucks, because I would love to have mentors or people that I look up to that are really solid in their philosophy on life, or just their frequency they operate at. Because when you operate from that, you just see it differently.
Yeah, I think to the idol question or comment.
Yeah.
I learned at a younger age. Your idols are your idols for probably one or two specific reasons,
Sure.
and we have this human nature that tends to want to put this incredible likeness of whatever that is. So, great guitar player, you know, Eddie Van Halen. You love him as a guitar player. He's the best guitar player you've ever seen. You tend to take all these other characteristics and put that greatest guitar player across
You
all
almost
these other
fill in
characteristics.
the blanks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it doesn't belong there.
Sure.
That's why we're let down by our idols so much, is we tend to we speak in such broad strokes about these other attributes of their life that just don't belong there. Being great usually requires you being not so great in other areas of your life. If you
100%.
study great humans, they have 4 or 5 amazing attributes and 4 or 5 really bad ones.
Yeah.
You know?
100%.
And that's tough to swallow if you want to put these people on a pedestal and they can do no wrong. I haven't met a lot of people like that.
Yeah.
Maybe Tony Robbins
Is incredible.
yeah, I
So
mean, I don't really
it's-
have much bad I could say about being around him, but I'm sure there's something, you know?
But I think the thing about
Sure.
people like Tony is they operate with such an open heart, and they just operate in this way that it's really hard to hate on certain things. He has things that he might not be good at, but the way he operates on a day-to-day, it's just like you could feel it, you could respect it. So it's really hard to point out things that's wrong with him, because he authentically operates like that, even at home, when no one's looking, when there's no cameras. And I think that's a big part, is the authenticity about just being who you are, even to your point when you're saying being who you are and not going left or right. There's more money here and this and that. Living authentically in the long run, I think, gets you way farther.
Yeah, and I think also if you try to find out and point out his mishaps or
Right.
whatever you want to call him, you're not focusing what's important, right? Because you're focusing on something to justify to yourself that you need to find something because somebody is so perfect, right?
But I think that has to do with the viewers'
Yeah.
own ego and insecurity.
Perception. Yeah, absolutely. It's their own, there has to be something wrong, right?
I'm
It's
trying to
their-
bring him down to
Right.
where I feel like he's human, but
Absolutely.
he's so out of reach to that person, because their perspective can't even match up to the way he operates. So they're trying to, like, let me bring you down a little bit, so that that's tough.
Well, it's funny that we talk about that I brought him up, because he and I have a lot to say about Tony Robbins. We both
Yeah.
have been to his island in Fiji, and
Oh,
both
wow.
have gone through the programs and done the immersions and walked on
Not
fire.
together, separate.
Yeah, we
prior
found that
before
out
we knew
after.
Yeah,
each other.
hand in hand, you guys were
Yeah,
together.
we were laying in Fiji on the top of the roof. And,
You know what? I am secure enough to hold Mario's hand and walk across fire. I don't care.
yeah.
I'd hold
call
either
him-
one of your
you
hands.
You know
can
why?
call me
You know
what
why?
you want.
Because then he has to walk on fire and I can walk right next to it. That's fine.
And you're like, man, this is easy.
It's an easy walk. Let's walk backwards.
Yeah.
I think it's important for people to realize you want to surround yourself with people you admire and aspire to be more like in certain aspects. And that's one of the things I get out of my friendship with Mario and business partnership as well, is he makes me want to be better in certain areas of my own life. And I think that's important, to not want to compete with your friends. You should want to be surrounded by people that add value to your life, and that you want to emulate and take certain things to make your life better. And hopefully you're being a good steward of that and passing it along to
Right.
someone else as well.
And me being young, you say that, and I know that to be the truth, but it feels really hard for me to create those genuine connections with those people that I would put in that category that you just said. Especially, I'm like in my city, I'm creating something there, I'm trying to create something. There's not many people I could just grab and be like, yeah, I
Well,
respect
there's a
you.
reason for that, because they're valuable. Anything of value is going to be scarce.
Right, 100%, 100%.
So all you got to do is just broaden your search.
And
Just go
listen, that's
different
why I
spots.
love doing this podcast, because I get to meet and talk to people like you guys that I would normally never we would probably talk, but like this gives us an opportunity to go at length, and I get so much out of this that this stuff just fills me up, and I take it home, and I'm able to operate even with more fire in my belly about it all. Because when you get into the grind of the business and all of that stuff, the day-to-day monotony of the little tasks and all this stuff, and I'm still at that point, right? I'm not at that point where I'm stepped away and it's all just delegated and handled. I delegate as much as possible, but I'm still in the mud, right? It's hard to keep that fire sometimes. So this podcast, especially being able to travel and talk to you guys and stuff, it keeps me up there with it. Because when you're trying to do something that's big or bigger than what is around you, it takes a lot of consistent fire for you to just continue pounding the pavement and stuff like that, So,
Well, take it from both of us.
Yeah.
We're both super immersed in our businesses.
yeah, exactly.
And I love it because when I come to his business, I watch him, that entrepreneur fire comes out. He'll turn the corner and he'll see something that just only he would see that's not right. It's out of place and it needs to be fixed right fucking now.
Yeah.
And he does the same thing when he comes to my shops and my business. So
I love it.
We'll walk in, we'll be talking. Oh, what is this? All right, no, we need, and you'll go grab the person that needs to handle this. Okay, we need this to be done. And then, oh, sorry, where was I? And then and we catch each other a lot, and it's cool to watch.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to be consistent, right? Like if you look at Mike Tyson, he said it best, right? Like, what is it in success? It's to do something continuously what you don't want to do with the most effort you can bring. It's for us the same.
100%.
It's like we treat it like going to the gym every single day.
Right.
And if you don't do that, if you show up late for work every single day, then that's your outcome. It's like I'm in my company at 4 o'clock in the morning where everything is closed. I'll be here by myself because I can structure my work. So I'm finished at 8 and then I go with my workers, or with my employees or my friends or whatever. It's a continuous push every single day, and it matters most when you don't want to do it.
100%.
It's like, that's when you have to go out and figure out. And going back to your part for finding the right people, I have a big saying. I say, like, people love to focus on the negative parts of people, right?
Sure.
Or the not so fine-tuned parts. If you recognize them, the key is to go around them and focus on the good part what the people have. Because you don't want to poke into the part where they're not as strong, because you only make them weaker.
100%.
Okay, so you have to focus on your friends and your peers and your partners and your part. Where are they strong? And then it's my opportunity, how I take it, to be strong in the parts where he's not.
Mm.
And that's way more important, I think, if people would think about that. Then you will have tons of friends, not family friends, right? Like, or tons of opportunities, tons of partners, but you have to be aware of their challenges and then go from there. And
I totally agree. I mean, even from a leadership standpoint, now it's like if you're picking out the good things about people and recognizing that in them, it's a good practice to have overall throughout your life. But even I bet you guys do that with your staff, with your partners. Like, what is the good qualities? And as long as the bad qualities aren't just like breaking that trust and all of that stuff, or that type of bad qualities, then seeing the good in people, you're able to delegate them to a position for them to succeed, and everyone is better off because
you have to make them bigger than you are, right? Because
Sure,
if you're not willing to step over that hurdle to make the people better than you are, then you're not doing them any good and not yourself anything good.
Sure.
That's a key part to it. I'm happy for all my friends, what I have or whatever. It's if they do better in life, in private life, in business, in whatever they want fulfilled, right? If
Sure.
you want to run a marathon for, like this motherfucker runs like every morning.
That's what I said. I was like,
Every
damn.
day, I fucking see his video. I'm like, I'm going to run tomorrow, and send him a video. And then when I get up, it's like, fuck that.
Yeah. It feels totally different when you wake up in the morning. You go to sleep like, I'm going to go run. You wake up, you're like, fuck that.
I'm like,
dude.
But
No
you know
way.
what? Back to this point. That's when you get up.
that's
and you say,
when that's when it
"I gotta
matters.
Get up and fucking do this.
Yeah.
But
So is that a challenge? No, it's-
yeah. When you don't want to do it, you got to get out and do it. And that's just a discipline I'm trying to follow through in my everyday life. Currently, I've gone through quite a bit of weight loss and just a better health regimen
Sure.
overall. So I can be happier and live longer and feel better. But back to the thing that you were just touching on, at this point in our careers, we've taken on this mentor leadership role, And we touched on it earlier, Shine, that there's a really poignant moment as an entrepreneur where you realize you can take the fork in the road when you've done your job as a leader, as a mentor. You've helped raise whatever employee, staff member
Right.
to a certain level. You've had positive impact on them. They've become specifically in the tattoo world. Okay, we've helped them become a better artist. They've gotten to a certain plateau, and now they want to spread their wings and go open their own shop or go have different worldly experiences. And it's very easy. And I'm sure we are both. I can't speak for him. I'll speak for myself. Early on, it used to drive me crazy. I would get so mad and upset. How could this person leave after all this time and money and energy I've invested into them?
Yeah.
And I had to flip a switch. And I think Tony Robbins had a big part in the way I approach this is I did my job. Wait a minute. I should be proud of this person.
Right.
I should be their biggest fan. I should be cheering them on their way out the door with handshakes and hugs and be proud of that, almost like a parent where you're putting them out into the world and they're having this growth and this experience, not just because of you, but you've had an impact on that. You've literally helped them do that. And that is the way, as a good leader or a good mentor, I think it's important to have that perspective. And not everyone's going to work for you forever. That's an you started out working for someone. You started out working for someone. I started out working for someone. These are the dreams of young dreamers, and you have to help them bring those things to fruition and help guide them as a mentor. Our job is to get them out of our door eventually. And yeah, it comes with a sting on the business side, but as a leadership role, then that means we did our job, and it means we did a good job.
Yeah.
Hopefully they're leaving with smiles, handshakes, and hugs and doing it the right way. Hopefully you've instilled these core values for people to leave the right way. I have people that leave my company all the time, and most of the time they'll do it in a very respectful way, and they'll come back and they'll want to still guest spot, and they'll still call me. You worked for a gentleman that worked for me for 5 or 6 years named Nick Westfall.
Right.
He owns a skull museum in Sacramento now, and he's a good friend of mine. And when he left, he did it the right way. With John, I'm going to go do this. You've been a huge mentor to me, and I was so proud to watch his growth, and I love watching what he's doing now. Like, dude, you're doing so well.
He
so
speaks
proud
highly
of you.
He does.
Well, that's awesome to hear that. I hopefully I had a meaningful impact on his life, and it's to his credit, he did the work. He's put in the time, and I love seeing that in former employees, people that have come into our life, and I feel like I had a part in that person's success, and I'm proud of that.
And you know what's funny? I think a lot of people glamorize the leadership position or the owner position, and a lot of people don't necessarily know what it means to be that. They have this glamorous idea of what that means, but there's so much of a workload, and not only that, the leader almost has to become way more humble and set their own ego aside for them to operate the way they need to. And I think a lot of people want to be the leader because of the ego, and it fills them up, makes them feel more important. But then when you get to that point and you want to be successful, you realize how much you have to clear that all away so that you could operate authentically and have a positive impact on the people around you.
Yeah, most of the time it's like everybody thinks we sit on a beach all day and drink pina coladas,
Right, yeah.
And it's like we have this crazy stuff going on. But I think the real part of an owner is that people don't understand how much you really sacrifice on yourself, right? Because like in my place, I have many employees, right, with the color companies and everything.
Sure.
They all have kids. I know most of them. I see them grow up with me. I have employees working with me for 26 years.
Wow.
I'm like, I know their kids when they were born. I know their kids when they went to high school. I know their kids when they come back to the tattoo shop. I'm like, there's a responsibility which is greater than just like being an owner, right? It's like, it's heartbreaking when you have to let somebody go. It's heartbreaking because you know where are they going next, right? Not always you care because some people make their own call. But I think that's a big part, that the mental, psychological part to be an owner, especially in our industry where we have to mix the artistry with the business side, right? Which just makes it very difficult, even if you're a peer side.
Even if you're
a peer side. It's like not bad for a peer side, I'm gonna get hate. We're gonna get hate stuff with it. No, nothing else. But it's very difficult to separate those items and learn how to work with them and do your own mirror talks, right? What I always call it.
100%.
It's like I always say, it's like when you get up in the morning and you can look the man in the mirror in the eye and don't blink. It's a good day, you know. And I think there is challenges to all of our lives. Nothing is like how you say this, honeybees or whatever the fuck it is. It's like
No, because what drives us is that challenge. So
yeah, it's the
if
failure,
you ever,
right?
you know,
It's,
I don't. We
it's-
can always talk about, oh, this was hard, but we wouldn't want any other way.
no,
We
it's
wouldn't,
like,
because
I
we
mean, I
love
want to see
that.
the failure, right?
Yeah.
Because then I know it's. We only fail when we get out of a comfort zone. It's like it's like.
No, I fail all the time.
Uh,
I fail all the time. You know, we actually go back and forth on this a
But-
couple times where, you know, these motivational speakers, they get up on stage like, I've never failed, everything. Oh, fuck you.
Yeah.
If you can't admit your failures, then you're not growing. Sorry, I mean, you're just using semantics at that point.
Sure.
And I understand what he's saying. I'm not calling him out. I'm saying in a broader context where.
Did you just call me out?
I don't know, man. I think you did.
No, I mean, it's funny because we've talked about our failures a lot around each other and gotten quite comfortable with talking about our failures. And without those massive failures, you know, we're talking about the San Francisco thing. Without that massive failure, I wouldn't have had the tremendous growth on the backside of that. So that's an important thing, is to recognize your failures. What do I need to change to make sure that doesn't happen again? Because I don't want to
It's a
repeat
stake in the ground, right?
Yeah.
It's people have to put when there's failure happening, which is just a redirection of an outcome, right?
Right.
It's like if you make a plan and it doesn't work out, then put a stake in the ground and say like, okay, I'm not gonna do this again, right? And then sometimes you fall back in, and then you remind yourself, it's like, fucking idiot, did this again, you know. And then after the second or third time, you're frustrated enough that you make the change and say, fuck it, I'm not.
Yeah, and
So I'm
I
walking
think it's
over.
super necessary to fail, because it almost like you said, the forks in the road. It's like when you fail, it almost opens up a new fork that also creates different opportunities that didn't show themselves before you failed. And I think someone that says that they've never failed, I feel like even if they are super successful, they lack the gems and the knowledge and the wisdom that comes along with the failing. And one day when it gets hard for them, most likely they could crumble because they've never felt that failure or a sense of rejection.
I heard somebody say once, if you've never failed, then you're not doing enough.
100%.
I mean, I could tell you, we fail every day, right?
Yeah.
It's like still, like in my company with the color, especially with the pigments, right? Because we try to develop new pigments. We try to make them safer, more stable, more user-friendly, more like, and every day we're failing on it and failing on it and failing for our own terms.
Right.
It's like, okay, this is not good enough. This is not bad, but how can we do this? How can we do that? But that's the reason why we're the only company in Europe who came in and passed the law.
Right.
It's like because we worked as long as we could to find that road. You have to keep pushing forward, you know?
Yeah, and I think the key is, like, the quicker you could fail and then reroute, like, as soon as you fail, like, you come up with the solution, or you're on the road to finding the solution. I think a lot of people get hung up on their failures, and then they internalize that, and they make it become a part of them, and then they feel weighed down by their failures, and they feel less because
Because
of it.
they worry more what other people think. That's the
100%.
problem. It's like failure is only, look, everything what comes with this is like, if you assign importance to it, then it's going to hurt you or hurt your feeling or
Yes.
change your behavior.
Right.
If you do not assign an importance to it, but if you fail, okay, it's not important. What's important is how do we make it.
Right.
It's the same thing when you're young. It's important that you drive a Ferrari, and when you're old, you're happy to walk. I mean, it's a
That's deep.
no,
It's true.
But,
Yeah,
but
it's
that's
true.
the truth. So
It's true.
you have to make sure it's like I have a big saying. My guys always say this, like, because it's gonna work. It's gonna work. It's okay, you know. And they're like, "Oh, how the fuck you always say it's gonna work?" Yeah, because that's how I think. It's gonna work.
And because you think like that is
Right.
the reason why it's going to work.
Right, and it doesn't work all the time. 99% it fails, but that one time it works, it's happy.
Yeah.
You know, and it's the same when people invest in the market or somewhere. They always talk, I lost so much money. I say, well, how was the end of the year? I was positive. What the fuck?
There you go.
It's like you had a great outcome. You know, it doesn't matter. It's. I didn't have to, did you?
A great year?
Yeah, in the stock market.
I did okay.
Motherfucker.
I was a dummy. I lost it. I lost in crypto, but you know, I got on that wave, and then I was doing really, really well. And then, you know, I don't know if you guys remember when it
It's
tanked.
the exit strategy, remember? The exit strategy, what I said before, you have to have an exit strategy.
That's the thing I was missing, because I think I was getting a little too like, ooh, it's right there, you know.
You know, something I wanted to touch on to this, because we're on the
Sure.
personal financial literacy part of the of our industry is something I think that lacks in our industry is a template or certain mentors to show some financial responsibility and literacy
Sure.
within our industry. And I think we've had a good impact with at least the people in our companies. But I think there's maybe a broader market to help the artists in our industry set themselves up for retirement. Through stocks investing,
Yeah.
other things,
Or even
because
basic making budgets and stuff like that.
we've taught, it's simple.
hate
Learn
budgets.
how. I mean, it's kind of irrelevant now, but the
Hate it.
concept of balancing a checkbook is still important.
Sure.
And he and I have talked about how is it that he came up with some of the people we would consider massive legends in the tattoo industry, right?
Mhm.
And how many of those guys are completely broke. And not because they're stupid, not because they're bad tattooers. Some of them are incredible tattooers. There's reasons they're legends, but because they had bad financial planning, they let what they wanted at the time get in the way of what they wanted in the macro, and they made poor decisions. He didn't. He invested his money and became successful at that. And success, breeds enemies. You have people who are jealous of that success. And they don't realize how much work and sacrifice went into that success. It's one of the things I think it's important to try to instill in young tattooers and piercers for that matter. But in our industry, there's no retirement program.
Right.
You have to do it for yourself. So that financial literacy, I think, is very important.
Yeah, and I think a lot of tattoo artists are almost spoiled in the way, especially if you compare it to a normal job. You get cash, you got money, like you can make money as much as you want to work, you can have money, but very rarely do people have the long vision, and the long vision is what's lacking. And even then, even in the micro, in the moment, how to manage the finances that you do get. So let's say you make a bunch of money. People don't even like a lot of tattoo artists are like pirates. They'll keep cash, or they like cash more than the bank, but then they don't have any like cash history with the banks. They can't do anything after that.
You want to live the life of an outlaw, you're unfortunately going to live the life of an outlaw.
Yeah.
There's a backside to that. You're not going to be able to buy a car or a house. Or get any type of retirement program. There's so many things that come with that not paying your taxes thing. And look, we want to pay as little of taxes as possible. We want to do it legally, right? We want to make sure that we're using the tax law. We want to pay into the systems for several reasons. One, we want our business to grow. We want to grow personally, but we also want to contribute back to the world that's supporting our entire way of life. That
100%.
you have to be able to contribute back, and to not be in our industry. It's I'm going to get some hate from artists for this, but I don't care. To not pay your taxes and then be the loudest guy in the room shouting that somebody else should be paying more into the system, I think is one of the most hypocritical bullshit points of view that's out there. And it's everywhere in our industry right now. It's everywhere, and it pisses me off.
I'm gonna let you take the heat on that, and I'll support you
fine.
by the answers.
I agree, though. I mean, there's a lot of people that people look up to in the industry, for better or for worse, because like what they embody is steering young people in the wrong direction, and that's why like I see my position as I'm very young and I'm very humble in my position. In the future, I want to grow to affect the industry in a positive way, because I come from very humble beginnings. I grew up homeless. I didn't have a father. I didn't have much parenting. Everything I learned or have is through tattooing. Like literally, the social skills, money skill, every single thing I know to this point has because of tattooing. My entire family would be homeless if I didn't tattoo right now. The only reason they have a home to stay is because I tattoo. So it's so special to me, and sometimes I lose sleep at night thinking about just how much I want to do this the right way and do it in a positive way, leave a positive impact. And even if that means it takes longer for me to make the money or all of this stuff, money is just a tool that I could use to make my own life comfortable, but then to also make other people's lives comfortable, make things change for the positive and stuff. So
Yeah, I mean, money has been created to control you what you do, right? Because
Right.
it's your level of society where you're gonna go, right? You can be equally as rich with $1,000 in your pocket for the next month as with $1,000,000 in your pocket
sure,
for the next month. You can be equally as rich emotionally, right?
that's huge right there.
Not like with shit you buy. You know what I mean? Again, goes back to what I said earlier. I think what the biggest challenge is like we are little in our we're in an older. It sounds stupid when I say this. I'm older, right? But I'm in this industry a long time, and for many years, I haven't thought second about what to save and what to do. Many years, I was a tattoo artist who lived exactly the life what you just described.
Which
And I
is a
think-
contrast to you because you were a big
Yeah.
saver.
It's
I had a depressionist mentality. I was always afraid of the bottom falling out and
Mhm.
becoming and being bankrupt. And that I'm gonna let Mario finish. And I'll
Yeah,
jump
sure,
back to
yeah.
that. Go ahead.
Yeah, so it's like for my part, I live my life. My father says always, right, which you know is an investor. He always says like Mario is like is going on a diving board blindfolded, jumps in and figures out if water is in afterwards. You know, it's like, but that's me, and I'm proud of that side of me because I'm the artist, right? The side that I started to understand. Hold on a minute here. There's something coming at the end of the road, right? Because I never thought that I'm gonna fucking get 40.
Hmm.
I never, ever. I was convinced I'm dead with fucking 29.
Really?
Convinced.
Me too. I thought
Really?
I had no intention to go over 40. You know, it's like with all my behavior, everything I did, everything was, it was balls to the wall. So there was no need for me to understand that I need a future. I had no kids. I
Yeah.
had no part. I got my son when I was 44 or 40 years old.
Wow.
And then it's like, and I have
Son's a great drummer, by the way.
Oh,
and
really?
I have two daughters now, 1 3 and 1 2, right? So my life's perspective, my perspective has changed dramatically with age, and that came with like then saying, hold on a minute, if I can't sustain, how are my artists sustaining?
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I started putting in the people to put them on 401k plans, put them on like employment plans, health plans, and they were screaming, kicking and screaming like a little toddler.
Right.
And then
That they didn't want it.
Yes.
they didn't want it.
How?
Yes.
It's
What an ignorant point of view. You have somebody that's trying to bring some and match your money, by the way.
Yeah,
Like, okay,
4%
you put in
highest match,
5,
safe
I
harbor
put in
match.
5.
Right.
And you're kicking and screaming that you don't want to put in your 5. It's, to me,
but it's more important to get 2% on your fucking payout, right?
Yeah.
That's more important. So it's like, but
Short-term view.
yes.
right, it's like, but the main part is like that was I think it's still a big part what should change in our industry. I think if you want to take the profession as a tattoo artist, and I'm not talking you want to be an artist and live on the beach and cut your ear off. I'm talking about if you want to make a regular living, finance everything for your family, build a future, buy a house, and have a retirement chance that you can travel and enjoy your kids, you should get employed by a tattoo shop who is willing to employ you and save your stuff, get your 401k plan, get your health insurance, because it's always going to come to fruition when you need it.
Sure.
And then you're going to think about it, and then it's too late.
Well, a great example of that is when COVID happened.
Yes.
You know, how many artists did you know that were so hand to mouth during COVID? They had not saved anything.
It didn't take long for them to be in a crisis, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's most of America anyway, right?
Yeah,
Oops,
yeah.
I shouldn't say this now.
the,
Now
that's the truth. But we are in such a privileged environment in the
Yes.
industry where we
Yeah.
see artists that are making 100K plus.
Yeah.
And those are the people I'm talking about specifically that hadn't saved a dollar. Within 2 weeks, they were, basically needed to stand in the breadline. That is inexcusable to me. We need to change that in our industry. We need to develop a better understanding of financial responsibility. And I'm not sure how to get there.
Yeah, but I don't.
I was gonna
think,
ask that.
Sorry, I think the person who makes the 100K plus, he's responsible for his own actions.
Of
It's
course
the
he
people
is.
which
However,
gonna come out and try to make a living and try to make the fucking $500 a week to survive and pay their rent. That's the people which need the support more than anybody who throws his money out the door with 100,000 a year.
you're not wrong. What I'm saying is, I think that our industry attracts a lot of people that don't necessarily have the cognitive tools laid down. You're talking to Shine here. He's talking about how he was homeless. He didn't have a father. He basically was brought up in an environment. I have no idea how you got the intellect that you have sitting here, knowing your background. And I listened to a couple of your other. I'm
It's
floored.
life experience.
I'm floored. Yeah, but it's the way he took that experience and made
Right.
something of himself, and he took that information, complete left turn than the way most of our country takes that information. I'm actually very impressed with you as a human because of where you've gotten yourself with the hurdles you had in front of you.
Thank you so much.
It's saying honestly, it's a humbling story to hear. So congrats on where you're at. I'm actually very stoked for you and to see where you're going to be in your future. It's really exciting.
Wow.
But back to the point real quick on why I think a little bit differently on the why I was always a saver. I got in a bad car accident when I was 17. I got 150 grand. I thought, and I grew up what I would call American poor, because I've been to some third world countries, and the
That's real
poor people in our country have no clue what real poverty is. When you're trying to, if you're fighting over a bucket to use as a toilet between 3 families on a dirt road, and only one of you actually has bricks to hold up the other people have cardboard holding up their homes. I didn't grow up poor, but in the context of this conversation, I grew up American poor. So when I got $150,000 at 17 years old, I thought that I didn't understand the zeros or the responsibility that came with that, and I literally ran through the $150,000 living with my parents, mind you, in less than a year. And when I hit zero,
I would have done this in a month.
One purchase, it's gone.
Well, this is in 1991, so 150 was like 300K now.
That's
No,
a
I
lot.
know. I'm just saying
lot.
with the speed I could support.
Yeah.
The speed.
And you weren't working during that time that you had the chunk, were you?
Oh no, I decided to quit my
Right.
job. I was working.
I remember that from the book.
I was rich. Why did I need to work? It was
Yeah.
I did everything wrong. So I actually have a very clear understanding of how these NFL players go bankrupt.
Yeah.
Within 3 to 5 years of leaving the thing. I understand how lottery winners go bankrupt. I literally know the mindset of how they get there. They don't understand that your job now is to protect that money, that wealth. And how do I make it grow? Instead of spending off the top, how do I park this to where it grows and I spend off the growth? So that's why I had the depressionist mentality, and I've always been good at saving and getting myself to the next thing. And I always hated debt. I watched my parents really struggle with credit card debt and not understanding how debt works and good debt versus bad debt.
Right.
So I got financially literate as I started my company. So
No, how did you do that? Was there something? Did you seek out information? Did someone help you? Did you just look at general information and was able to absorb it real easy? Or how did you get that financial literacy?
well, the early days I just saved and put my money in the bank and
And I think that's a good starting point,
Yeah.
because once you save, you have like a nest egg, and now you're like, okay, now what can I do with the money? When most people can't even get the nest egg.
That's exactly right.
Right, got you.
And it
Okay.
started with $50 and grew into 1,000, then grew into. I remember the days where I thought I was really wealthy when I looked at my business bank account at Club Tattoo and I had $7,000 in it. I was like, man, I am doing well.
Yeah, yeah.
But to his point, you can be as rich as the guy with $1 million in a pocket if you got nothing in your pocket. It's all a mental state.
Yeah.
Right.
I think it's mostly mental, right? It's and I always call it decimal points, right? Because we play with fire every day, and this is maybe something what people don't know either. We made a lot of money. My company, right, made a lot of money, and we also lost a lot of money very quick. I mean, the stuff by us goes like in rapid downhill. It's like jumping out of an airplane instead of walking down the steps, right? So it's just the willingness to take the risk, or how to take it and how to perform with it, right? It's like, and sooner or later, of course, the saving has to be. I was never a saver. I didn't give a shit. I was a great tattooer and maybe still am. And I can make this the beauty of our job. We can go anywhere in the world, wherever we want, at any time we want, and get a client.
Yeah, the saying is, as long as I have my machine,
if
I'll
not,
never
I
go
make
broke.
one. If not, I make one. I tattoo you with something what I find to make.
You just
fucking
hand
make
poke
it work.
everything, a
It
full
doesn't matter.
color sleeve.
Doesn't
hand
matter.
poke.
Yeah, for the next 7 years. But that's the beauty of our life, right? That nobody can take this away from you.
Right.
Nobody. You know, it's like so. The willingness to risk a lot is also sometimes for bigger rewards, right? And then, of course, the biggest challenge is like going on top. If you want to be on top of the game, it's okay to go on top of the game because you have all the strive to go to the top of the game.
Yeah.
To stay on top of the game, it's a little bit different because not everybody's chasing you, and that's the same with funding, right? If you make a lot of money,
And they're doing it with shortcuts because now we've created a path, and now they're able to literally jump years ahead of the learning curve that we endured.
Let me jump into that. We've seen this in Europe with the colors, with reach colors, right? It's like we had to hold. Like we try to reformulate everything, do everything that we pass. We finally pass. Now we are ordered to file our paperwork with the ingredients, how we change the pigments with that company, third-party lab, and make it public.
Wow.
So that means everyone can steal your recipe.
At
is
that
what that
moment,
means.
the same moment when we came in, And we opened it up. There were 3 companies following with the same CI numbers, even though they didn't use him. It's like to make those colors work and the all additives what we have to use. So we did the research for 2 years, put all the funds behind it, and they were just waiting and sitting. Smart, yes.
And you weren't
Fair?
able you weren't
No.
able you weren't
But
able to patent that?
you can't patent it.
See,
You
that
cannot
sucks.
patent it.
God,
See,
that's
It's like it's we
Not
have
like
a
medicine. R&D in medicine can take 5-10 years, and that's why those patents exist, right? So that you can have exclusivity on whatever it is that R&D is a heavy expenditure
Right.
up front. You can
Right,
recoup
it's-
on that.
It's like, and then we had this several times, right? We can't forget this is we are always the leader, and this is fine for me because why? Because my alter ego, which is the tattoo artist, wants that. So it's like, and this is I think the biggest part, right? I'm fully 100% independently owned by me. That's it. There's
Wow.
no other owner. There never has
that's
been.
great.
There's never been any investors. There have never been any. This is me all the way from the 0 to the top and back to the 0. if
What
it
do you
has to be.
attribute that to? Because you're also, I think, being an artist helps, and all this stuff. You're building up, and then you just lift it all up yourself over time, right? And then without bringing in outside partners or anything like
I
that.
never wanted to because I was
Yeah.
always so far ahead, right? Like my attorney Damien, which is very well known, he says like, "Don't even talk tomorrow. He's 5 years ahead," right?
Damn.
And because for my part, it's just like, it's this life was so good to me, right? Because I came out from the motorcycle scene and I loved it, and I was tattooing all my life. I never had anything, and where it grew to, but gave opportunities to my family, my parents, everybody else, even though they're well-off friends, business partners, whatever it is, to provide such great experiences over time, doing conventions over a year. For me, it was not important to do the convention. For me, it was important to see the people to share their secrets.
Sure.
Because I come from an era where nobody talked to each other.
Right.
It's like if you walked into a shop, just to put it in perspective, I walked into a shop that had a sign on it, if you're a tattoo artist, fuck off.
Damn.
And then when they
Wow.
find
We
out
grew
that
up-
you're a
yeah.
tattoo artist, you were in a fist fight right away.
Yeah, there
so
was a lot
I,
of fights and
I
firebombs.
cherish education. I cherish sharing knowledge. I love the
Yeah, me
internet.
too. Yeah.
I love that people gonna go and get the information and grow the fucking talent like that. I love when somebody comes out for 6 months tattooing and I want to break his hands
Yeah.
because I'm like, holy shit! It's like, where did he come from?
Oh,
But
dude. it's-
that's what drives me,
Sure.
right? And as a tattoo artist, I want to be able to use the best possible product for myself. So I have that alter ego battle every single day in my company. That's why I never brought anybody in from the outside.
You were a partner to yourself. Your two alter
Absolutely.
egos were partners.
Absolutely, and we have a lot of arguments together. You know what I mean?
I
Him
can just
and
see you in a room by yourself, just
I
fucking
do. I'm like-
arguing to yourself.
I think one of the cool things, just to piggyback on that thought, is you're starting to see a lot more thought leaders and less selfishness in our industry than you saw back in the 80s and 90s. I grew up I came in this in 95, and
Right.
there were fire bombs and fist fights, and that we really did go through that. I was a part of that and witnessed it, and it's so much more fulfilling when you feel like you're contributing back to the whole of what our industry is, and making it incrementally better, whatever that means, whatever your contributions might be. But to see the internet's been such an interesting tool for our industry, to see guys like yourself and other thought leaders that are coming in and giving advice on the internet. It just didn't exist in the early
Yeah.
days. I mean, you'd have been laughed at if you were putting out an article in because there was no internet. So our internet was Tattoo Magazine
Yeah.
and those magazines, and you had to read about it. And even then, they were so guarded in what it was they were sharing. You really didn't get much out of
No.
it other than so-and-so lives here and this is the name of his shop.
There's a couple positive things in that. I say, like, because way back, not way back, it's not that way back. We talk about
It's not.
15 years, 20 years, right?
But so much has changed in such a
Right.
little time.
So what happens is at that time, the most people which came out and were in the tattooing industry were people like me. I never wanted to work. That's why I became a tattooer. I didn't want to take a job. I was like, fuck this. It's
Yeah.
like, I can rob and steal a tattoo. That's it. So
Right.
I read a tattoo. It gave me more longevity a little bit at that time. And then it's like, so the situation, what happens is at that time, the people which went into the tattoo scene had no education in the art field, right? They had no predetermined training when they grew up. They started, they figured out they can do it wherever they wanted to learn it. Now it's a little bit different. all the kids with 8, 9, 10 years, their parents are not as prejudiced anymore against tattooing, so they can actually look at it. Now, what they're looking at is at the top of their elite today.
Yeah.
So they're not looking at the stuff that has been done 50 years ago. They're looking at the top tattoo artists today, and that's their standard.
Yes.
And
100%.
this is what changed the tattoo industry with what I think with the internet, right? Besides all the other media outrage and Dennis Rodman and all these people which put it into the media web.
Sure.
But for the artistry itself, I think what happened was is like that's the biggest change. But that's also the biggest danger. Because if you are a high profile tattoo artist today who is the top of the game, you're the standard for tomorrow. That means you don't have 10 years of lifespan
Yeah, your
if you
shelf
don't
life-
work in it.
Your shelf life's
shelf
going to be
life
a
is
lot
down.
shorter.
You know, it's because there's somebody who is gunning for you that quick. And
You had artists back. That's an excellent point. You had artists back in the 70s. Judy Parker was a big name for 20 years. Are we going to have somebody that's a big name for 20 years right now?
That's tough.
I think you're right. The window is a lot smaller, and it's two-sided because they have this fight, this drive to get to become the best, and then to stay there, like you touched on before. Now they're making a little bit of money. They've got a nice house. They're on vacations. They're not living, breathing, eating it like they were to get there, but there's somebody right behind them who is, and it's, you know,
it's like a fighter, right? And when you're 40, 50,
Yeah.
you're not fighting in a 20-year-old's game, right?
Right.
It's a normal way of life. I always say, and that's why we always talk for me. People say, why are this long and relevant? To many people, I'm still relevant. Many I'm not. Many don't know my name. I don't care. But what it is like you start out, right, to be a tattoo artist, you learn to become an apprentice in some form of way. Even if you train yourself, I've told somebody they should call him, instead of scratches, right? Remember that? I say call him aspiring artist because nobody of us fell out of our mom and was a tattoo artist.
Right.
Haven't seen it yet.
Right.
So we all learned, and then you become a high-end tattoo artist.
like
you
that.
become incredible. Then you have to give back, right? And then when you give back, you become a trainer, right? You become a coach, you become a peer, you become a guidance, you become a mentor. Those are phases in your career.
Right.
And you have to feel comfortable to accept those phases.
Yep.
It's like you can't be, and the best example is always when I say you can't be 60 years old and fight a 20-year-old in a boxing ring. I don't care how great you were and how good you are, you're going to get beat.
Yeah.
There's no way, you know, and that's fine with me. It's okay, you know. I think it's a really important part that people understand. You have phases in your life where they have to work as a tattoo artist.
Yeah, and I'm still young, and I've been tattooing maybe 12 years now, and I'm already feeling the fact that the next generation is coming right up behind me. 1 year, 2 years into tattooing, if they just emulated some of the stuff that they see, they're looking at the best in the world, the best that's ever been done in history, and that's their standard. They're coming up on it so fast that I even had to take a step back on what do I want out of this career? Am I trying to constantly strive to be the best artist better than people, or just the best artist I can be? And then I start to form myself in different ways around that. The phases, like you
just
said.
be the best the best person for your client because he's going to decide who is the best anyway.
Right.
It's not like what other people say or how many followers you have or whatever it is. If your client is happy with your work, then you're the best artist for him for the rest of his life.
Yes.
That's a key to the people. They have to understand not the most extravagant pieces which are done, which nobody can duplicate. There's many people out there which it's a personalized personal business. It's the communication and the connection between
Yes.
the client and the artist is more dominant than the best tattoo work ever created. I don't care what you're saying. If you find your tattoo artist you chime with and connect with, and you can share your we can't forget this, right? Share your most intimate moments with your artist, because somewhere we are all psychiatrists, right?
Yeah.
And then we have to go home and deal with it. It's like, what the fuck? I had to listen to this. Now I'm depressed, you know? But we need to give him the best experience. We get their deepest secrets, their deepest. If that client connects with you, it doesn't matter how you work.
Right.
This is a client for life. And he decides how good you are because you're his tattoo artist and nobody else's.
I think there's
Otherwise, we go in the ink master thing. And
Yeah.
then
I think
it's
there's two ways to look at this, or at least I compartmentalize it like this. There's more than two types of artists, but in this scenario, you have the masses that are not art critics. I teach marketing. I do marketing lectures, and I say, how many of us have a tattoo? And everyone raises their hand. Okay, how many of us either have or know someone that has a bad tattoo? Everyone raises their hand. And I say, out of those people that have the bad tattoo, do you think that they think their tattoo artist is the best artist around? And they all raise their hand again, because they're not art critics.
Yes.
They're experience critics, and they're their own experience critics. And they had a good experience with this awful tattooer, but that awful tattooer made them feel good about themselves and gave them a good experience. And at the end of the day, that's what he's speaking to. You really want to make sure that, you know, you're giving your client this ultimate life memory that they have a positive reaction to when they're thinking about it. And now the other side of that is, if you can be a great tattooer on top of that,
Yes.
then you're really going to knock it out apart. And then the third side of that is, if you have become an artist that has developed such a unique style that it dictates the type of clients you get. And that's the tattooers we're starting to see now.
Yeah.
You know, the past 5 years, I think we've really seen that change. When 10 years or so, you know, when the Carlos Torres and Nikos kind of came on, and they started developing.
You've seen this with Paul Booth already, Brian, and Jack Rudy. They dictated the style already.
So there you go.
So I have to take your young
trump me.
age now and basically school you for a
No.
moment.
He's right. And Guy Atchison and all that. So for sure.
all that.
Yeah.
All that.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
like those.
But those types of artists, they got to a level and they developed their own style that was so unique. Then clients, they were able to dictate how and what they were going to tattoo. And that's the road you face. Are you going to try to become that artist, or are you going to be a good artist that's going to put out solid tattoos that where the clients are asking for their name and script or whatever maybe an artist who's only working on sleeves and back pieces don't want to do anymore. They've gotten to a point in their career.
I understand, but if they don't want to do it, then they should quit the job. I'm sorry.
Well,
It's
why-
like the
well,
most
why?
important, because the most important part of the satisfaction lays with the client, and not with his artistic personal ego that he wants to create an art piece. What is more important to him than to
But
the
I think to
client.
Sean's point, it's sorry.
No, go ahead.
I think to Sean's point, it's like there's the side of being like efficient at tattooing and being less connected, so that you're efficient. You get them in and you do good enough tattoo, they're out. That lacks the connection you're talking about, but there's still space for those people that exist. But then to your point, what I am more attracted to, yes, if you're going to embody all of these things, you're also going to get a lot more personal satisfaction out of it if you really embody the connection and all of that stuff. This
Yeah.
is less fulfilling, but there's
Let me
Go ahead,
touch
Sean.
on that. I'm not saying they
hot,
should.
hot spot now, hot seat.
No. I'm not saying they should snub their nose. I'm saying is they only have 12 hours in a day to tattoo.
yeah.
If they've gotten themselves, and kudos to those artists who've gotten themselves, who get to dictate what those 12 hours are dedicated to. Do I want to dedicate it to this sleeve, or do I want to dedicate it to 10 names? And that doesn't
Right.
mean that they think that the people getting the names are bad or lesser than. They just have a certain amount of time that they get to put their art in a certain
Look,
way. That's all I'm saying.
Look, it's like, of course, if your style separates itself so much that the clients are seeking you out to get that style of tattoo, and I'm one of them. We can't forget that.
Yeah.
It's like where people fly from around the world just to get that style, that work, that and they still do it today.
Right.
So when it gets to the point, but you should always, and this is just my personal opinion, and I know many of them are my sponsored artists. They're incredible artists. I think the most important part, even by producing the tattoo in your own style, in your best quality, you should always keep in mind that it should be the ultimate piece for your client. Because if you don't do that, and I always make this explanation, you've heard this, you get a $10 million house as a gift. I know many people will now write, oh, I take any $10 million house, I take a $100,000 house. That's the reason why I say 10 million. To get a $10 million house, and before you move in, I take a sledgehammer and I break the main entrance tiles in your foyer. I promise you, 10 years down the road, you're going to hate that entrance. And that's how I compare this with tattoos. If people or artists forget that this is not a canvas, this is a human being with thoughts, feelings, emotions. And they will look at that it will walk out of your door You keep a picture, which is a snapshot in time, but that person will carry this for the rest of their
Yeah, their
days and look in the
experience.
mirror.
Yeah.
And they will do this for the next 50 years. If there's 1% off on that piece where the client cannot connect, they will hate that.
I think we're speaking the same language. Is what I was saying is if you can do both, if you can
It's
have
incredible,
that,
yeah.
if you can have the artistic, the both of you guys are that. You have this incredible artistic ability. And then if you're able to connect with your client on a spiritual, emotional,
Oh, if you have both, it's
yeah,
incredible.
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That to me is the nirvana of
100%.
our
Fuck
industry.
you say it how I said it.
Oh, it's all semantics now. Jeez. But I mean, I'm glad you guys brought that up because that's everything that I have ever wanted for my shop that I built. And our tagline is the ultimate tattoo experience. Now, it sounds very just like, man, ultimate tattoo experience. But the whole point is that exactly is like anybody that comes and works with me, I want them to know, like, look, I understand you can go to a private studio and just work by yourself, or you can go to this shop and they'll have plenty of walk-ins and all. But if you want to come here, A, learn how to become the best artist and develop a style that is recognizable, and then B, work on yourself as a human to open up, to be able to take in other people's energy and then be able to harbor that and then let it go better than it came to you.
Leave it better than you found it. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's huge for me. And that's actually, I think some artists either shy away from it when it approaches them because they have a lot of work to do on themselves, or you take it as a challenge like, do I better myself now for the sake of feeling this nirvana you spoke about? And I have gone on a huge journey my whole life of spirituality or just opening up or just understanding my own faults and self-awareness and stuff like that. And through that, it allows me to open up to people in a way that is more warm and authentic. Because when I talk to people now, I'll have the deepest conversations with my clients and they'll leave thinking that the conversation was even better than the tattoo. Tattoo's great. Tattoo is great. But they go home and they talk more about the experience we had. And man, he wasn't what I thought. He was so knowledgeable, open-minded, and he spoke to me, damn near spoke to my soul of what I was feeling. And I think that is something that more artists should take on as like as an opportunity for your entire life to grow and be better because of tattooing, not just treating it as like easy money or like you're just slinging dime bags and you're just slinging tats. You really have an opportunity to change your life and change other people's lives through what you do. It's only going to come from how serious you take it.
Yeah, and I think, sorry, just very short.
go ahead, sorry.
It's and I think you hit the point very well. I just think that the most artists, when they're in the early stages of their career, they do not pay enough attention to that area of tattooing. Then all the other part, and then later on you start understanding. Hold on a minute here. I can really make a change here. I can influence this. I can make this outcome different. And it has nothing to do anymore with the tattoo.
Right.
It's something to do with a personal experience where you understand it. Then the more you teach, right, the more you grow. It's.
I think maybe you and I both get this from our music backgrounds. We understand that the personal journey that people get by listening to music. That's where I think it's instilled in me at a young age was through music.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so and I know I don't tattoo, but I'm resonating with what you guys are saying and have the same thought process. And the fact that you're getting this at such a young age and you're driving your artist to do that's really awesome. I love hearing that.
Yeah, it shows the evolution of how people which are really interested in the industry shorten the time frame. You know what I'm saying? But us, it came with 40 or with, and I don't even know your age, by the way. So, but he keeps saying you're very young, very young, very young.
I'm gonna turn 30 next month.
Jesus.
I know,
Christ,
right?
What the fuck? You could be my son. It's
Oh, with your past, he might be.
he might
Papa.
be. But that's right. The Papa.
I
was
told you
there.
I don't have my dad.
We're gonna have a surprise for you all in this podcast.
Oh, great.
Mario, meet your son.
Here is what was it? The test, like that.
Yeah, I'm
Oh,
Mario
and-
Jr.
And the results are in. You know. It's
Yeah.
like, fuck it. But I think that's really what is really nice to see, and I think this is a great result. I see this with Mike DeMasi, by the way. You know, Mike DeMasi I met from Art Junkies. I don't know if you know him.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I tattooed him way back Inkslingers Paul, right? And then he was asking me, say, hey, I want to start tattooing and blah blah blah. So long story short, I just left him my colors, like I said, take everything on my table, take it home and start tattooing. And then he went back home and started tattooing. And till today, he has not stopped that same philosophy with every single person who works and has trained some of the best artists, have trained some of the and that's his philosophy. It's in his shop, it's in his part, just to give further. And that shortens that that acceleration of whatever change comes, right? Instead of change coming in 50 years, it now comes in 10.
Right.
Right?
You,
Or in
you
14
paid it forward.
years.
Now
So-
he's doing it. And he's incredible.
Right, and then when you do it in the next way, this change is going to come in 2 years, and at that time it becomes younger and more sustainable in the future. Which I think is a great element. For me.
Yeah, and then hopefully over time this becomes more of the standard in the industry, which then uplifts the overall energy of the industry and how people view it too, even from the outside. Because the more people that represent the tattoo industry in this way, they'll see it as a more experiential thing, and they'll see it for the value that it has, and not just like a bunch of degenerates just permanently modifying themselves, right?
Yeah, and I think we've passed that point
Yeah,
a few years
we definitely
ago.
have,
We
right.
went from the back alley, biker kind of approach to now we're mainstream, and now we're part of fashion. We're part of
Right. Culture.
Yeah, we're actually embedded in American culture
Yeah.
at this point. I think if you do the stats, if you're 60 years and younger, there's more than 50% of the country that has tattoos now. So we finally passed the 50 percentile, and now we're getting. It's funny we talk about this. We've been pitching unique locations that would never talk to us 10 years ago. They would laugh us out of the fucking room, and now they're calling us, going, "Would you be interested in doing this here?
Wow.
We have this idea." It's like, we fucking pitched you 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Disney's a great example. We pitched Disney 3 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
and now they just made an announcement, took our idea, and they're doing their own Disney tattoo shop. Pisses me off.
Did they do it themselves? Did they partner with somebody?
No, they're doing it themselves, which they're. I'm gonna go out on a limb here, man.
I'm like,
I'm gonna get some fucking rocks thrown at me for this. I think it's a very difficult take on, no matter if you're Disney or whoever, to just start a tattoo shop and expect artists to just follow your Disney rules.
Right.
Mhm.
We watched it happen when the casino tried to do it, and it imploded. I think that's the one thing that we'll be able to do long term. We'll see how it plays out for Disney. I think they're going to have to bring in somebody to be the artist liaison, because they're not going to be able to do it from the C-suite.
I mean, it's like us opening a fucking amusement park, right? That's not our forte. They
Yeah.
open up a fucking tattoo shop. It's not their forte. I don't care what they're saying. If
Right.
you either will live it, we're going back, and everybody can. I know if you do business, I know all you guys out there who say this, yes. But tattoo artists are different breeds.
It's going to be a learning curve for them,
They're
no
like-
doubt.
You
Yeah,
know?
I mean, you went through a lot of that because you were a piercer, so you're a little closer to the industry than someone that's just a business guy. But you also had to operate from a standpoint like tattoo artists had to be excited to come work for Club Tattoo because of the way you set it up for them and the way you had the vision for it. They followed the vision of it, I think, and then you as a leader as well, and that makes up for anything that, oh, you're not a tattoo artist. I feel like you made up for that in the vision and then your people skills as well, because I feel like you've connected with everyone that's worked with you and you have a good connection with those people.
Thank you. I think I had to give them a reason to trust
Yeah.
the vision, and down to the aesthetic of the business, how we operated. But I did learn how to tattoo, and I was making needles back in 1995, and that's how you couldn't buy pre-made needles
Right,
back then.
yeah.
You had to make your needles. I was doing that. I'm a really competitive human, and once I learned how to tattoo, I realized I just didn't have that innate artistic ability, and quite frankly, if I'm being honest with myself, didn't want to put in 5 years of work of learning how to be an artist first. So I ended up moving into the piercing side of it. I love math, and I love jewelry design and all these other things. And at the time, there really was no bridge between piercing and tattooing.
Wow.
So kind of had to lay the groundwork for that. And, but I had to take a different approach as a tattoo shop owner that didn't tattoo. I had to respect the artist differently than maybe if I was a tattooer. I had to listen to them differently and take on their concerns maybe differently than another tattooer would, because another tattooer might blow them off. Oh, that's not a big deal. But I had to listen a little differently and maybe adjust a little quicker.
Yes,
and
and make them feel heard, because they're
Yes.
coming from a standpoint where Like, it's good that you got in the mud for a little bit though, because I feel like you get a lot of respect out of like, hey, let me get in the mud and feel what this feels like. Oh shit, this is a lot. I'm gonna go to piercing, but I get it. I understand what you guys go through on a daily basis, because a lot of people just want to feel like the person is leading them understands what it takes to do what you do on a daily basis. Tattooing is exhausting. You got to deal with fucking clients that are good, bad, horrible personalities, especially when you're starting out. You're dealing with craziness. I'm sure you have crazy stories. I have crazy stories as well. And to your point about being the artist liaison, I do find that, especially if I think about expanding in multiple shops and stuff like that, the hard part is a lot of people that come work with me want to come to work with me, right? And that is a hard thing to break out of. I know you can. I got advice from someone, and they said, now that you got to a certain point, you need to learn how to duplicate yourself, right? And then you have to pour into people to bring them up to your level. That way they could be the you while you are gone, right? And I have started doing that. But again, then there's people that leave at the top. I got to feed the bottom. I'm always searching for that person or people that are going to be able to hold that spot for me and really respect that position. But then sometimes when I get them so close, and then they go. And I have to be okay with it. It's fine. And I love this position. I love mentoring and stuff. I just want to see where it goes to be able to bring people up to that level, and then we could all live in heart. Because I don't think everyone is supposed to be an owner.
I agree
No.
with that.
No, absolutely.
And I think a lot of people want to experience. You can tell them all you want how hard it is, and it's like it's not what you think it is. Some people have to learn from experience first, and then sometimes they might even come back with like, hey, that wasn't what I thought it was.
Most of
Can
them.
I have my job back?
Most of them.
How
most
many
of them.
shop owners how many artists do we have that work for us now that at one time either worked for us, quit, went and opened up their own shop, and then came back?
80%.
And then worked for
I
you for
have-
20 years
yeah.
or something.
80%.
I have at least 9
Wow.
artists right now that have either left, opened up their own shop, or were previous shop owners and came back.
Wow. And it's really a testament to the energy that you develop in your business, because nowadays there's the option to just go into a private studio and pay minimal. Like you pay like no booth rent, right? And then they could just run it up, make as much money as they want. And I find that that's something that's hard to compete with when I'm bringing these artists up, especially with the style I do. I teach them specifically my style. They like black and gray. I could teach them how to make the most solid, almost, I call it like graphic surrealism, just because it has a very graphic feel, but it's realism. So it's solid. It heals really solid and stuff. A lot of solid black shapes, a lot of negative shapes, heavy on the design and composition of the whole body, right? So I teach them everything I know about that. But once they get up to a certain level, the clouds part, the world opens up to them. Now they have so many options. Oh, I'm making money now. I have a style. People respect me for this. They could do whatever they want at that point. And I'm not one to tell them, hey, you shouldn't do that because we're better together than we are apart. I might hint at that just to be like, look, I get it. I was there. I feel like we're more powerful together than we are apart. And all you're going to do is separate us. You're going to go over here and you're going to try to recreate what we already had here. But just you at the helm. And that's the hard part that is competing with, is like people could just go and tattoo out of a small little studio, pay $3,000 a month in rent. Maybe they get a couple artists. Rent's paid. They just collect 100% of their money. And that's more appealing to young artists than being a part of a team and building something that's bigger.
I think it was always appealing to the artists. That's how all
Right.
the shops started. And it was always the same. It was same in the 80s. It was same in the 90s, same in the 70s. It's
I think the sting will wear off a little bit. I mean, the fact you're even acknowledging this too at 29 years old is crazy, but it took me a lot longer to learn this one. Why am I doing what I'm doing? Is it because I want to have 9 artists that are just like me, or am I doing this because I want to give back and I want to do something that is meaningful and I want to have an impact on the world? Like if you can get away from the ego side of it, I think it'll sting less when those guys that you've invested 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years into leave and open up their own shop. You'll realize that everyone has their own why, and that their vision or their journey is going to be different than yours.
Yeah.
No matter what, it's going to be different. We all have different passions. We all have different reasons for doing what we do. And that for me makes it a little easier to swallow.
I always say it's like, I wouldn't do that, right? But if they would be like me, I would work for them. You know?
Yeah.
It's a big say. It's like, and it's a truth. If I would have a boss who is me, I would love to work.
But isn't that kind of how you create your like you think about, like, because that's how I've done it. I worked for many different shops, bad shops, really good shops, Nick's shop, everything. Took a bunch of notes from all of them, and then I created what I would want to work in, and then also the type of boss I would want to work for, because I lacked direction. Many years of my life I could have skipped over if I had the right mentors and stuff like that. So I do appreciate the few gems that I did get, but now I get to embody what I think is good, and then that's how you create your entire business, is based on your experience.
Yeah, that's how you create your own life, right? I
Yeah.
mean, that's what it is, your own roadmap, right? If
Right.
you have a dream, another stupid saying what I have is, follow your dreams, their roadmap to your destination, right? That's what it is.
I wouldn't call that stupid, but yeah,
It's,
I like it.
I like it.
But I have this little metaphors what I always say, so so I have to say, "Fuck you, do this." you know,
It hits the subconscious a little more.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
I think the best we can do as business owners in grooming the next gen is give them the tools to do the best they can for the right reasons with the best intentions, because as they get more successful, they will come to the realization that all the money will do is magnify whatever characteristics you have anyways. If you're a shithead of a human being and you get money, guess what? You're going to be a very loud, obnoxious shithead when you have money. If you're a good person and you're grounded and you have good intention, when you get money, that will come through as well. And the best we can do as owners, mentors, leaders is try to pass those tools along so that when they get there and they leave, they are leaving with those hugs and handshakes we talked about early, and doing it the right way, and not trying to open across the street from you or steal your employees or all this other stuff that's happened to us countless number of times, knowing we did the right things by these people and they're still trying to shoot us in the back on the way out the door. That never feels good. And I think for myself, all I can do is just try to pass along the right tools, and hopefully they learn.
So have you ever experienced this where maybe you're operating from the best intentions and you're giving them to all this that you just said, and then maybe somebody feels like they want another environment, they want to leave, which is totally fine, right? But to get to the point of them leaving, they approach it in a way that they're trying to almost create the problem as to why they're leaving, and they start picking at things, and they're like, well, I'm leaving because you this and you that and that and that. But really, they just wanted to experience something different. They felt the need to create that problem, almost like in a relationship, how someone would want to get out of a relationship. So they create problems and then act like it wasn't them or it wasn't their initiation of leaving. Have you experienced that?
Yeah, I mean that's a basic psychology,
Right.
where they're using a defense mechanism to protect themselves from the pain or the truth that they're facing.
Right.
You see that all the time,
Yes.
actually, and they'll create these. You see it in personal relationships as well, but in our business, we've seen this a ton of times. I forget where I was going with that, but I basically
there's not really much to say. It's like the guy, the arsonist, who
self-sabotage.
right,
Yeah.
like puts the fire on, then he comes save it out, and then he says, "I can't deal with this any longer." Right?
And
That's
Right.
They're either emotionally or intellectually immature to a point where they can't reflect on what it is they're feeling and why, and be responsible and accountable for those feelings, and mature enough to take those feelings and communicate it with the people that have to have uncomfortable conversations with. I think that's where I was going with that.
100%. Yeah, and to segue in on this, because this is it sounds like a lot of emotional intelligence and wisdom and stuff. Just to go back a little bit, when you got that spark to change your major to philosophy, what attracted you to the philosophy?
It was a very specific moment in time. I took a philosophy 101 class, a professor named Mr. Gangadine. He convinced us the entire semester that there was no God.
Right.
And me and my friend Henry would go to all these parties, and we were the smartest kids in the party because we could throw all these cool debates out and win all these arguments. And then the very last day of the semester, he flipped it on us, and he explained why there is a God and why there is purpose. And he said, if you want to learn more, take my next class. And I
Wow.
was hooked, man. And we spent so much time with this guy. He changed my life. Mr. Gangadine, wherever you're at, if you're still alive. Awesome dude.
Shout out to him. And I think that's huge because I had a similar experience with it, where especially people like us who want to develop that wisdom and emotional intelligence, because you could see how it'll work not only practically in the world, but how it'll allow you to feel more fulfilled and live a life that feels fulfilling personally to you, not just to the outside world, but it really feels good so that you understand the psychology of it and all of that. So obviously I played a huge role in how you did business after that, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the way I approached everything.
Right.
For me, it has to have purpose. I have to when I'm doing something, when I'm playing music with Mario, I want to have am I here to pay my bill, or am I here because I want to have fun?
And then be
Well, for me,
mindful in the moment and then really enjoy the energy that you're in.
Absolutely. And it's funny because when we do stuff, and I'm not meaning to segue on music so much, but when we find ourselves playing together, we're so busy. Our phone, we'll go back to our phones off our break. There'll be 90 messages for each one of us. And we'll just look at each other and laugh. We're like, fuck, and we'll just start playing again. Because that's the moment we're in, and we want to be able to unplug from everything else. And we're giving whatever we're doing at that moment 100% of our attention. And I think when you do that, you can be really good or great.
Yeah, especially you can do multiple things at the same time, right?
Answer text and play drums.
Yeah, you can focus on parts of what you want to focus on, right? It's like it doesn't help if you focus on something and have different thoughts on a different subject, if that makes sense.
Yes.
So that's why when we started here, take everything out of my pocket. That's actually came from the music, because in the beginning, when I was going on stage, I still had my phone in, and then, but even though it wasn't turned on, it still reminds me that I
subconsciously
have a phone.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I was like, okay, all right, one more time. Oh, let me just check my phone. In this case, I put my phone away, right? And that's when my girlfriend calls me. Then most of the time I sing in and say, Beth, you call it. You know, it's like, because it's
That's
like
an old Kiss reference, but
yeah, old Kiss reference. It's a because I don't want the phone in it. I don't want to be interrupted. I want to be in that
In the
part,
moment.
what I'm doing right now. Because if I take a phone call right now and say, hey, listen, 3 minutes, I'm telling you, it's never going to go and pick up where we were.
100%.
You know, and that's with music, that's with
it's with
tattooing.
anything.
That's with the part, wherever you go, if you go into a meeting, leave your phone, turn it off, stay in that meeting, focus, go out, then look, and then go from there.
And I've heard actually that multitasking, the way people generally see it, is not real, because your mind can only focus on one thing at a time. If you're multitasking, like you're saying, you're jumping your attention from here to there, which is obviously going to dampen whatever you're doing and the energy around it. To your point, the real multitasking, if you want to do multiple things in your life, you have to master being mindful in the moment 100%. Because if you're able to be, if you want to be a musician, a tattoo artist, a business owner, a ink company owner, all of these things, that requires you to, when it's this time, it's that time. When it's this time, it's that. That's the real multitasking.
Yeah,
You're exactly right. It's a hyper focus
yeah.
for short periods of time.
Yeah.
Right.
And the idea we had to get away from the idea that, oh, I'm a great multitasker. When I hear somebody say that, it's a red flag.
Yes, me
Right.
too. Mm-hmm.
I used to say that, by the way, and
Yeah.
I had to come to the reality of, no, you're not. You're a shitty multitasker
Right.
because you can't do 3 things great at the same time. It's impossible.
And they always
Do
say,
one
well,
thing
I
great.
can.
Well,
And that's
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
all right.
yeah, because they didn't realize it. That
then
they
why
have,
are you here wanting my advice?
well, the main part is like really the opportunity or how I said it. I'll try to find the right word for this now. It's like I'm going to my German vocabulary. I just opened up the drawer. It's like the real gift is, let's call it this way, it's easy. The real gift is when you look at your brain, which is all little drawers, right? What you work in, like you store stuff, right?
Right.
The real gift is how fast can you switch from this subject to this part, but completely, not just like, all right, yeah. I deal. I have many times when I deal with my people and they ask me something different in a subject what I'm dealing with right now. That I say, I can't do this right now. Give me 10 minutes.
Right.
Because I am that drawer with the information what I'm currently working on. I'm still going to the elements.
Right.
Then I have to close that, and I go over, and then my brain switches to this. Right. So that's the real gift of a multitasker, to separate the compartments and use them at the right time.
Right.
If you open up 3 compartments, you're just in a messy office.
Yeah, you're in 33% of each underneath. You're not
Trying to read
100%.
3 books at the same time.
Oh.
It's impossible.
Yes.
It's I mean, I can listen to my wife television and the kids screaming at the same time, but doesn't mean that I hear it.
It's all a blur almost at that
It's
point,
all
right?
about
It's
that
like,
moment. Oh, I
noise.
need to write a song. Hold on.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah. And I think I've learned this through my process as well of trying to become the business owner, but also being a tattoo artist and being booked and stuff like that, because and I still struggle with it because tattooing takes so much energy, and and especially if you're going to be the one that's connecting to your clients. I take so much pride in just like how I contact them the first time to when I greet them, how we small talk, just all of it. I want it to feel so pure,
Mhm.
but it takes a lot of your emotional and mental energy, right? So I find myself getting into these, and I also do multiple day sessions with almost all of my clients, 2 days, 3 days, sometimes 6 days, and they get an enormous amount of work.
Wow.
It's a lot of energy output,
Mhm.
and then I have to shift and then realize that while I was doing that, these things happen, that things happen. And then I wake up the next morning after even like a long 6 day sessions with my client. I just did that not that long ago, last month. And I wake up the next morning and it's almost like and I just want to clear it completely, because then you have to reset and get back into the owner mode.
Mhm.
And that is still difficult. I'm still learning that. But the fact that I recognize it, I know I'll get better at it just from recognizing it. But it's still tough. It's really tough.
Yeah, I think it's the most difficult part what you really can achieve, right?
Mhm.
It's that how to switch off and on,
Yeah.
right? And how to switch off and on. I mean, first you learn to switch off and on between private and business life, right? That's the first part you learn. You go to work, you switch off. Hopefully, some people can't even do that, right?
Right.
Leave your private shit at home, right? Go into the shop, take care of your part or any business you have, and then go out and then turn this on again.
Right.
And then sooner or later, you're gonna learn to add one more. It's like running a marathon. You run 1 mile, 2 miles, 3 miles, and when you get it, then you can. Uh, like put it in the right place, and that's where music came in for me, because music, it's with tattooing. When I start tattooing, I go on a vacation. That's always what I say. It's like people say, oh, I don't know, that's just what I do, I'm gone, right? It's like I like it, I don't have
I
to
like that
think.
better. I like
I'm
that.
like, it's just my space,
Yeah.
right? When I started music, it was the same thing, and it was like when I started playing guitar and singing, because there's no room. I can't think
Yeah.
of tattooing or what I tell Sean later if I play the guitar and sing.
Yeah.
I have to separate those two, and there's no room for a third element. I mean, for some people, at least when they play the drum, right? But I can't. So it's like, I think that's a big part what you have to learn if you want to multitask your life. And the biggest difficulty is to put those psychological problems what we all get over the years, right? The frustration of your work not being right, dealing with the clients, having
Right.
your private frustration, maybe your shit doesn't work out at home. We all went through that. I went through this already before, and all your existence is on the line again, because it's all on you, right? Because
Right.
as the tattoo artist, it's all on fucking you.
Exactly. That's exactly how I feel.
It's like people don't understand it. It's me. If I go out and I do a push up and I break my fucking hand or I fall or I think, I'm done.
Yeah.
Who's gonna do it? That's his advantage right now, because he's a piercer and he has multiple shops. But and it's even more worse when you're the sought after artist, when the people want you,
Yeah.
and at that moment you're out of business,
Yeah.
right? And then so with dealing all this over many years, you have to learn and perfect the separation of your compartments, what you deal with. And I think he's an exceptional great, because I deal with him on multiple levels on this. He knows exactly when to open, when to close, when to open, when to close. So our conversations are very short, they're very direct, they're very like, okay, done, finished.
Purposeful.
And then the next part is you have to, it's another part what I learned, you have to, especially from him, at that time, act on it.
That's huge.
Do not, and
He's right.
because like I said before, I'm probably late for something, right?
He said
But-
this before you got here.
It's like, but what he's like, when he hangs up, you will get a confirmation on the phone, you will get the text message, you will get your email. It's the execution of the moment. And that, I'm telling you, is it after in my old age that I still can learn something new. That's what I learned from him.
Wow.
Thank you.
It's like, it's he's really on the money,
I bet you has he ever told that to you in those
No.
words?
No, it's cool to hear that back at me. That's actually really cool to hear that he actually respects that and likes that. Sometimes I feel like I can be overbearing with that, and I don't do it because I'm worried about his deliverable. I do it because I'm worried about my deliverable.
Mhm.
Because I was a really bad. Oh, I'll remember that guy.
Me
I'll
too.
remember that. No, I won't. I'll fucking forget it. And I have to write things down and actually make strategies and plans for myself so I don't forget it, because I take my accountability very seriously. And as a business partner to him and as a friend, I want to make sure, this is what I actually think, I'll touch on a partnerships conversation. What I think makes you for an excellent partnership is when the partner wants to do more than he's asked and beat the expectation of the person. Like for me, I want to over deliver because I want him to be stoked about what I did.
Yes. 100%.
And I know he does the same for me. So that to me is what makes a great partner, is when you want to be a better partner for your partner, whether that be in business or marriage or girlfriend or whatever. Those things always will transcend in life. Back to the other thing that you were talking about, I feel bad for some of these artists that are booked out for 2 years. You know, I think to myself, I could not plan my life 2 years from now. That's something I haven't come to wrap my mind around. Like I'm curious as to why, because for me, I look at it, I go, wow, I don't know what I'm going to be doing. I can see 6 months, I get that, but like life comes at you fast. Like, you know, people die. You have the impromptu vacation opportunities. And I'm not saying you want to just blow off clients or something like that, but 2 years, like you're mapping your life for 2 years. I could not do that.
So I used to be booked out about a year and 4 months on average, right? My books were always closed because I was like, yeah, I'll open them when it gets down to a year or something like. That's just so crazy to me now because I've made changes. I don't go over 4 months now. And a lot of people are like, why, you're leaving money on the table? I'm like, not really, because once it shrinks, then I'll just book more, and then you just do that. But it gives me more leeway to be like, okay. And then sometimes I'll leave gaps in certain, like I'll leave a couple days in between this 3-day session, this 3-day session. I try to do it smarter now because you're right. That's insane, and it leaves no room for balance.
Yeah.
And then I've learned.
Or it leaves no room for life to happen.
Right. Even when life
happens.
hits you in the face, it's like you have no, let alone resources, but time to just clear it out and then handle the problem. If you do clear it out, you're rescheduling dozens of appointments.
Yeah. Imagine you're the guy who had an appointment with you from 2 years ago,
and then you're like, "Hey, I got to reschedule."
Yeah,
I'll get you in.
Imagine how that feels.
2 more years from now.
Yeah, I can help you guys a little bit with that. I was booked for 2 years for 15 years, I guess.
Wow.
And there was the average. It was between 15 and 28 months. And what it does, it's like it takes everything away from you, right? Because the main part, it gives you everything you can create, right? But it takes everything else away from you. Something has to give when you get, right?
Yeah.
It's like, so when you have that long of a list, and for me traveling around the world, they say somebody gets sick, a client gets sick, I have to get him back in. For me, it ended up to be 20 hours in the chair, 7 days a week. And it's like, and I'm talking about 15 years straight or 16 years straight. Not like there was no room for, and doing the colors in between and the stuff, but it was like there was no room for family. There was no room for private. There was no room for friends.
Yeah.
There was no room for nothing, you know. And
that's a heavy price to pay.
It's a heavy price, but it's like you have to realize that you paid, and you're never gonna get it back, right? That time you never go. I missed many vacations. I missed many holidays with families. Many things. Because it's nothing else as being on the road, you know. When you have that New Year's Eve gig, you have that New Year's Eve gig, right? It's like, and that's the same with, because the responsibility to your client outweighs
any of your personal needs.
And this is what really happens. It's great to a time when you say, "Oh, I'm booked," but then it starts shifting, and then all the responsibility lays on you. Right. It's like when the people, "Hey, I've waited so long. Now you start working double time, triple time." You know,
just to accommodate for other people.
And that's just like, and I tell my people, I say, like, you say 4 months. I tell my guys, if you're booked for 3 months, you should be the happiest motherfucker on earth. Because at that time you can make plans. You can, when you get sick, I had no time to get sick. I haven't been home sick, I think, in ever.
Yeah. You wouldn't allow yourself to.
I can't.
You can't.
I can't. I went through everything from pneumonias to, like, just went through.
And how much is that long hours of tattooing attributing to you getting sick, and then you can't heal yourself, and there's this vicious cycle of not being able to take care of yourself because you're always thinking about your client or the next thing. And the vicious cycle for me is I feel so attached to the last tattoo I did.
Always.
So it's so hard to like build yourself up enough to be like, you know what, I've accomplished, I became a good artist, I've all this stuff. Because to me, you're only as good as the last tattoo you did. You could do 10 years of people loving you. Let that that last tattoo, they're like, man, I went and got a tattoo. I waited a year and a half, and he was tired and he was acting weird, and the tattoo was mid. And if that happened to me, I would fall apart, dude.
I think that's where the psychological issues for, and many people don't talk about it, the stress factor on tattoo artists, right? It's like especially on high performing ones. And when I say high performing, meaning like an athlete, right? Like working every single day, 10 hours a day, trying to produce the best, make no mistakes, right? That's what I always say.
Exactly.
We are the people who cannot make a mistake, or we don't make mistakes.
That's why they're going to you.
Right. So we don't make mistakes. Not really true. I just hide mine better than you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like that's always what I try to explain. But the mental stress of a long performing tattoo artist is incredible, and I've seen so many fail, and well, not fail but fall. It's the right word actually. Where alcohol came in, drugs came in, suicide came in. It's like just complete on that part because people don't understand how much pressure we take in every single day to be perfect.
100%. 100%.
I think the untalked about side of this too is the people that we actually do love, our families, our girlfriends, our wives, our husbands, that they become resentful.
Yeah.
When you guys are booked out that long and feel so much responsibility to the client, they feel like, well, you're feeling that way to the client. Why don't you feel that way about me? They just don't. There's a disconnect with your the feeling of responsibility you have. Even though we still have a responsibility, and I'll say we, but for you guys, you have a responsibility to your wives, girlfriends, family, whatever it is, children, and sometimes they get left behind because of this responsibility you feel to that client, and then you're carrying the shame, and then you see people that will turn to alcohol, drugs, and
we don't
fall
talk
off.
about it really, right? Like tattoo artists really don't
I
talk
don't
about
think I've
it.
ever even heard a conversation about this. To be
And
honest.
it's like, like I always tell everybody, I said, listen, I see my tattoo artists more than anybody else in my life, right? Doesn't matter if it's my family, my parents, my wife, my kids, my tattoo artists. I'm with them all the time, right? So it's like to cope with that, to have that inner battle, to continuously go to work and try to be there and don't have a time frame on it, right? Because our tattoos, especially mine, I hate nothing more when I hear how long is it gonna take. I don't fucking know.
Yeah, I don't know.
You know, I don't fucking know.
Yeah.
It like could be 2 hours, could be 20 hours, could be fucking 2 days from now. How about that? It's like, and it's just because the artist gets so aggressive in me on it, where I say, because it would restrict what I do. I can't sit down with a time map. You know, I have to sit down and get ready and forget time. That's why the last 10 minutes for a tattoo artist are always like, when they ask you how much longer, 10 minutes, slap him. Because you're going to sit another hour and a half, you know, fucking.
I was just saying this yesterday, dude. I was literally having this exact same conversation about how, like, wrapping up a tattoo, like getting to the end of it, like where you're cross your T's and dot your I's, that could take way longer than you think.
Yeah.
And that's why, like, we steered away from charging hourly. We do day rates now, right? Because the day rate thing is a lot more consistent for the client and the artist, because if you do hourly, it's really hard for you to make it really fair and like, well, you took a break and you this and the clock and you were talking, and it's just too much up in the air, right? And then if you charge by the piece, people are guessing. When you charge by the piece, you're guessing. There is no formula on a consistent pricing. You can find a client that your artist had and another client and compare the price to what they got, and it just won't make sense. So the only thing that makes sense to me is the day rate thing. It might take 8, might take 12. I don't know. You're paying a day rate because we're going to take all day regardless, right? People would be so surprised to be like, hey, can we do a half day and just do less work? And I'm like, yeah, but you'd be surprised. This would take all day too, because the wrapping up part and all of it, getting it buttoned up, this smaller piece might actually just take all day
longer,
too.
yeah.
And you're just like, it's because that finalizing is a lot of the energy, and the reason why it looks so good is the finalizing, you know? So that's a weird thing to have to deal with too, you know?
Yeah, it's like, but I think a lot of artists are not talking about it really. It's like what causes all this. We're fighting with our inner demon, right? When we look at a tattoo, because we're hyper focusing on the piece, right?
Mm-hmm.
And let's say you work 10 hours and I work 10 hours on a piece, but it's like I'm so hyper focused on that I see more than what's actually there
Yes,
for the
100%.
viewer to see, right? Because I'm like, oh, I have to do this, I have to go here, I have to go. But it's the
Yep.
mental. I'm pretty sure you have that too. Oh, I
100%.
have to see this. Oh, I want to go. But then you do something. You say, oh shit, hold on. Now I want this. So you keep going. You get lost in time and space, right? As an artist, and the situation for that moment is, why did I just say this? It's like this. See, I just got lost in time and space because I was thinking on a tattoo. Um, but it's like we have this battle with ourselves for the perfect tattoo, right?
Right.
This, at least from my
Me
experience.
too. Yeah.
Every single one I do, it doesn't matter if it's this big or if it's this big or if it's this big. I go for that perfect tattoo. So you have that inner battle when to stop, right? It's like, oh, is it enough or should I let it go? Or is it enough? And then most of the time when you overlook that moment, you most likely overwork the piece and it's gone, right? You don't see it that time because you hyper focus on what you're working on.
Right.
The next day, I don't know how it is by you, but when I look at the piece, at the picture, I'm like, holy shit, what the fuck was that? My clients, it was not you. It's like, but you see, because your eye and your brain is out of this focusing state, and it goes back to its old whatever it has to do. You look at the tattoo the next day, you see, oh, okay, I shouldn't have done that, or I should have done that.
Yeah, and it always ends up being that you did too much. Like you almost need to
Mostly.
simplify what you're seeing and have like a third person point of view on it, because you're only seeing it centimeter by centimeter. And when you're like that, you kind of lose the
Yep.
overall effect.
Yeah.
When in tattooing, if you want to talk about aesthetics and the way it looks on the body, if you zoom out and look at the aesthetics of a simplified piece, it's more, it looks better than something that is like just I always say that there's a lot of people that try to just show off how well they could tattoo without regard to how it actually looks on the body. And that's a huge part of what we do, is more the aesthetics and like, what does it look like when it heals? Does it add to their look or does it take away from it? Is it a blob? Does it look like a black blob with this crazy tombstone border of shading around it? Or does it flow off naturally in all directions and it looks like it organically lives on the body? And that's a huge part of what we do and stuff. But to your point, I suffer with the same thing, perfection. Even a simple thing, if someone just asked me to do a rose with some stuff around it, oh, I'd be so hyper focused on those edges coming off with grays, making sure they're sharp, even though it's just a medium gray coming off. It needs to be sharp, like as if there was a black line there, and that takes time. And then getting back to what we were talking about right before this, I started preaching a lot in my content because I've suffered from it too, is how important balance is in everyone's life, not just tattoo artists, but tattoo artists completely lose balance.
Yeah.
And they're just so lean towards just this side. They forget about their health. They forget about their family, to your point, and all of that stuff. And then when you get deep enough and you still want to uphold that amount of output, you turn to drugs, alcohol, because that's what's going to stimulate you to keep you going. I noticed that people don't talk about this a lot, about addiction in the tattoo industry, but a lot of people are on pills, coke.
Absolutely.
And you got to think about how much this stuff numbs the body, numbs the mind, so you could just dive into what you're doing. And then they wake up a couple years later and they're a full-blown addict. And there's people that are living that in silence, and they don't know that other artists go through that. And I think it's important for them to know a lot of artists do it. Some people even go through the process of getting off of it without anyone knowing. This all happens behind the scenes. And it's such a huge point, because the answer is you have to find balance. And I know it's super easy to argue, like, tattooing is the most important thing, my client's the most important thing. But zoom out on your life a little bit. Zoom out. Like, what do you want to create? What is your overall vision for how you want to feel and operate in your life and the people in it, right? What do you have to do for that? I started thinking about my health a lot more. I go to the gym. I make time for that. Even simple things like going on walks or reconnecting with nature, because you get so disconnected from everything that a human is supposed to be. I started going the opposite direction. I started getting really primal. I started really thinking about what is the basis of what it means to be a human and live a good life, and then build everything on top of that. And that's me recreating my life to be good. And that's what I want to preach in my content. That's what I have been trying to preach.
I think it's great. And
Great.
I think it doesn't just apply to tattooing.
No, everyone.
As an entrepreneur, when you talk about balance, I can't speak for Mario. I'll let him answer this. The same thing here is when people ask me what my biggest regrets are, it's always the time I didn't spend with the people I loved. It's never I should have done this business or that business that doesn't even enter my brain. It's always, man, I wish I would have had 10 more minutes with this person or spent more time with my son or, whatever it is. It always comes down to the time that I allocated in places I shouldn't have.
And you can't get that time back.
No. And as you get older, it becomes really blaringly fucking apparent that your priorities on your time matter.
Yeah. It's the same for me, 100%. It's like, I have a great son and I have everything. And like I always say, I wish I would have had more time. But on the other side, it was where I'm at today, and that's why we are here, and that's why they have a great life, right? But I'm pretty sure at the end of the day, they're going to say the same thing, hopefully, that they wish they would have had more time,
I think they would, and I think that although they have a good life now because of the work you put in, I don't think that they would change their sentiment about wishing to have more time with you, even if that means less money.
Yeah.
Because, you get used to a certain lifestyle, but again, back to the primal thing, you don't need that much to be happy. It's honestly people are grabbing for way more than they actually need, thinking that's going to bring the happiness. When I think the key is to really lock in on what really makes a human like happy and fulfilled. And then if you want to get rich on top of that, you can. But at least no matter where you're at in the process, you'll enjoy it, all of it, as opposed to just constantly reaching for a destination to be your happiness,
Yeah. I don't think a lot of people know this about us, that neither one of us actually have ever chased money. We've never said, I want to be rich. I want to do this. I want to make this. Literally never thought that way.
Never comes up.
We always talked about wanting to do great things or create something special or unique. And the money was always an affect. Yeah.
It's a vehicle to get there.
And usually it was an after the fact. Usually we were putting far more energy, time, and money than we had to spend on something to make something cool. Oh, and by the way, this actually pays something. Oh, wow, we actually make money doing this? Cool. It was always, we found out kind of as we were in the middle of doing something that there was a monetary value associated with it. It was never the goal when we started out looking at things. And even now when we're talking about doing businesses together, we never sit and go, well, how much money do you think we can make? I don't think we've ever had that conversation. We're like, how can we make this better? Does this experience, is it going to make our clients love this more? Like when we did our bar, we're designing the bar tops. We were talking about how much money that was going to make. We're like, how cool is this going to be? Like, how does this make this thing unique? And what is it, the differentiation for us versus the rest of the world? And the money is always an afterthought. And I know, the guys on Wall Street will laugh at us for saying something like that, but I don't care. That's what makes our lives purposeful for us.
Yeah, I think it's like that we're driving on the experience what we think we're going to create, if that makes sense. It's like we imagine how it would be if we can get this and people come and see
100%.
This is really what drives
We're dreamers.
us, I think.
We're dreamers.
We're like, whoa, can you imagine this? And then people come in and they can see that there was not one time, I'm telling you, it's like...
and how many times people tell us that we couldn't do something?
Every single day.
You too, right?
Oh,
Every day. It's like, for me, the biggest problem what I had, it's like in my past divorce, you haven't read my book, I'll give you one afterwards. It says the word no does not exist. And it's like, there should be stricken from a dictionary, right? No and maybe, and I try it, right? Because those are things, either way you do it or you don't. Try is just an escape.
Sure.
It's every time somebody tells you no, I say, keep on moving on it, because when you get to the top, you're going to be the only one there. So you have to, as long as you believe in it, it doesn't fucking matter. It's a Tony thing, right?
Yeah.
It's like, no.
Stop telling me I can't do it while I'm doing it.
Yeah.
Get out of my fucking way.
Move. It's like, if you want to drive faster in a race, you need to pass the one in front of you.
Yeah, they think you're crazy until you do it, then you're a genius.
Yeah.
And then they
and
say,
then everybody could have done it.
Everybody.
Then they simplify it into where, like, oh yeah, I see how you did that. So I could have done that.
When he opened up his shop in Mandalay Bay, I was so mad, because what he didn't know is I had been working on that since 2005.
Yeah.
Fast forward 3 years, whatever it was, and
2008.
I had done another deal with another casino, and then literally he opens up out of because we didn't know each other.
Yeah,
and it was pre Facebook, I think. It wasn't like all of the, at least I wasn't paying attention to it. Maybe MySpace. we didn't know of each other. And when he did, I was like, holy shit, he
Yeah.
beat me to this. It was never like, oh, he's going to make so much more money. It's like, fuck, I thought I had this really cool idea
Yeah.
that nobody had thought about.
Ah,
And,
that
you know,
feeling sucks though. That feeling sucks.
but at the same time, I had to get real with myself and admire it. Like,
Yeah.
all right, this dude's doing it. He's doing what I'm talking about doing, you know?
Yeah. So it's okay.
You never heard
Yeah.
me say that before.
No.
Dang.
I like it. Thanks. I think that's why we get along that
It'll
well.
go in my
It's,
next book.
Yeah, no problem. We should write a book together.
Whoa.
You write the front part, and I write the back, so people have to flip it over and read it the other direction.
All right.
Hey, that's pretty cool.
I like it.
I like it. That's pretty cool. Now, okay. So shifting a little bit, just a little bit, we've been talking about a lot of really deep stuff, just on a slightly business standpoint because of the times we're in right now. How much is your guys' businesses affected by the economic downturn right now? And then what, if it is, what shifts can you make, or what advice do you have for people that are feeling it more?
Okay, for my part, there's a dramatic shift. I
Dramatic.
think, you know, and it has to be said. So our strategy currently is that, I mean, we understand that the people have less money out there, you know, and they have to really tighten their belts, as you say.
Yeah.
So I believe that in the last years, the distributor had a high road. You know, I mean, I know we're gonna get slaughtered for this right now, but I'm already in it. It doesn't matter. It's like I think that the distributor, actually, the tattoo artists do not understand that most of the prices what they're paying for stuff is being eaten up or given to distributors, right? So the manufacturers which sit around like we are, right, like dealers gonna get a fairly strong markup, and then the artist is paying that on top what the product really cost. So we're in the midst of making a switch to work on a factory direct program so that the people can get the discount to the time that what the dealer would get, and then it
Right.
goes directly to the consumer. You know, it's because they are not willing to make a change. The distributors actually holding the market back currently that
Yeah.
the industry can grow. They try to restrict it with keeping the prices high, and the people, you know, can't really get all the stuff what they want to do. So that's the biggest part we make. That's our change. It's tattooing wise. I think we don't really had a change. I don't know how it was by you with our business. It's like it's quite the opposite. After COVID, we were coming back stronger than ever, you know, and we had massive hurdles. We had the shooting at Mandalay Bay, right? Way
Yep.
back in the day, and then COVID hit right away, and then all the parts. So I think we don't have any issues there whatsoever. It's like people had to change, they had to adopt, they had to be faster, friendlier, you know, and we worked on that. We tightened up our crew, made some small changes, and that was great. My other shops though had experienced, I think, the same what everybody experiences currently, that a lot of people work out of the house, undercutting the prices. You know, it's like just not taking care of a regular location. So there's business down. So we adjust with like better programs, better surveys, better, you know,
Sure.
younger artists, like adding maybe multiple elements to it, such as permanent cosmetic into one store, which I would have never done. But that's how I adjust to it. It's like what you have. And I have no piercing, so by me it's like I'm not in a. This is a big part which I've never tapped into. It's but
He's
that's
about
Offering
to.
other services and doing all this stuff
Yeah.
to raise the business sense, raising the bottom line to at least
yeah,
just pick it up.
yeah,
So
And then yeah.
I'm actually having a different experience than what he is. We're actually seeing across the board down about 15-20%.
Mhm.
Between all of our stores. So I'm seeing a dramatic shift in the economy. I've been screaming about it for about a year that it was coming. I think it's here. I think we're about 3 months into the recession. I think it's going to last for another year and a half,
Yep.
quite honestly.
Mhm.
We already seen back in Arizona, I've seen 2 other studios close down in the last 2 months. I think it's going to come a lot harder than that. And we're going to see a more significant capital shortages. We are adjusting for that in several different ways. I'm trying to make sure that we are optimizing our hours. So if we're slower during, Monday through Thursday, just an example, instead of being open till 10, and I know this is counterintuitive, we actually shortened our business hours to close at 8 p.m. so that we can be more efficient with the hours we're actually open and cut our overhead. So there's certain programs we're putting in place that way. Trying to offer different price points on some of our retail goods, like our jewelry is an excellent example. I love his D2C comment. To me, that's where the future of a lot of this stuff is going, these third-party distributors, and not just tattooing, but in business in general, you're seeing, and Amazon's the best example of this, is they've cut out the distributorships completely. Well, that's the biggest elephant in the room that's gonna transcend into other industries, and he's a good example of just saying exactly that. So I think for my business model is we're just going to look at it as post-COVID, we had the best 2 years we've ever had, ever. And I was saying this at the time, this is monopoly money right now. This isn't real. Everyone's living a bit of a delusionary lifestyle. They have all this free money that they didn't earn, so they don't have respect for it. Most Americans are horrible savers. They're going to spend it in really irresponsible ways. They just, and what happened? They did.
Yeah,
so now I think we're on the backside of that. So when we're seeing a 15 to 20% decrease, well, when we were up 28% the previous 2 years, we're actually, when I compare it to 2019 numbers, we're actually on par. So we're doing okay. So I guess in that respect, we're kind of on par with where we should be if I look at it through that lens.
Yeah.
But I do think there's some dark times coming for the American economy.
100%.
I really
Especially
do.
the people that don't have a good foundation or a good hold on how their stuff works, because to pivot, you have to already have a set, like, this is how we do stuff. Now we're going to adjust. And I think a lot of people don't even have a good hold on what they already are doing. And those people are going to get really hurt.
Yes.
They're going to get really hurt. Now, also, from our point of view, because I would consider our shop a more high-end, you know, we charge a little more and we specialize, right?
Yep.
So with this, everyone has to be booked out. Everyone has to have their own personal brand, and they have to really work on that and stuff. The people at the lower part are going to get really affected. The people at the higher part,
not so much.
yeah, just a little bit. I'd say that if you're appealing to a clientele that doesn't really worry about the economic downturn, they have money to spare and stuff like that, cool. But I think even the higher end artists, they benefit from all of it. Even the smaller guy saving a lot of money to get tattooed, the middle guy who makes decent money and they're down to spend on quality tattoos, and then the rich guy that's just blowing money, right? I think all of it create, even at the very, very high end. But now what I think, even for the higher end artists, that bottom and then maybe even the middle gets taken out. And now what you're left with is only the people that are up here, and then everyone else, since they're having money problems, feels like you're not accessible to them because you're up there, right? So now even in our thing, we have to.
But they're right.
They're right. They're right.
You're not accessible. You are not the guy competing with these shops doing $20 tattoos.
Right.
You're not, and neither are we, by the
No.
way. But to me, you've eliminated that client, and hopefully, what you've done with your branding, because you're excellent at getting out there and marketing yourself, is what you've done. Instead of the, I'm going to steal this line from him when he's talked about inspiring artists. I'm going to talk about aspiring client. You have these clients that their initial phase of getting into the tattooing lifestyle, they're spending $80 on their first tattoo, and that's all tattoos are worth to them. That's why they're going to the cheapest, fastest guy. As they start to learn more about it and it becomes more of their lifestyle, they start to appreciate it more, just like we do cars or watches or whatever else. Then the value grows in their mind, and 2-3 years from now, they might come seek you guys out because they have a different appreciation for that pricing and the art at that moment in their life. So I'll call them an aspiring client, and that's what we've kind of built this business model on. And I think you're doing the same thing without maybe even knowing it. Is you've eliminated the $80 client, but you hopefully have made an impact on them to when they become the $1,500 client.
100%. That's why I tell my guys too, educating the clients on what they're able to get is a huge part, because most people don't think they have access to the higher quality tattoos. They just see it on Instagram as like this polished photo, and it's just separate from what they feel like they could get, right? And especially if you talk about people that are like, oh, you know, I don't have that much money, so they just eliminate it completely. How I'm going to shift, and how I was just talking about this yesterday, how I think we might shift is we need to let people know that we are accessible and there are options, packaging options, package sessions, you know, get a cheaper rate. If there's any dates that we need to fill immediately, you get discounted on those dates so we can get those filled quickly, making it feel like they have options. And it's not just straight up, if I don't got fucking 10 grand, then I can't do shit. No. Take a look at what we have. We have an array of artists. They're all at different levels. They're all really good. But look at the options that we have because you might be able to get in when you thought you couldn't. So I think the marketing shift for us is making it feel more accessible and not like we're the Louis Vuitton to broke people. You know, like it's cool to be Louis Vuitton, but at the same time, when you're in this industry, if you have no clients, what are you doing? Like, you're really not doing anything. It doesn't matter how high end you
Well,
think
then you're
you are.
not Louis Vuitton.
Exactly,
Because
you're
Louis
not.
Vuitton is sought after. That comes with the
Yeah.
values on both sides, not only the pricing,
Yeah.
but the demand. Secondarily, I think to this point, I think what we're going to see in our industry as a whole, I meant to touch on this earlier, I think we're going to see financing become a larger component into
We're already
these.
starting.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think you're going to start seeing clients being more comfortable and educated on actually financing their art so that they don't have to be stuck with only the cash in their pocket. If we treat it more, and this is maybe a horrible or a great analogy, but the way we treat cars. Most people
100%.
finance their cars, and my first car was not a Mercedes, but I got to that point where I aspired to want to have a nicer car. Therefore, I was going to spend more money on that, and the ability to finance that is what allowed me to get there. I think we're going to see that more and more in the tattoo business.
You hit it right on the head. And I also was going to say that I don't think that just cutting your prices in half is the way to go, because you're going to hurt the overall brand and you're going to devalue everyone you've ever tattooed before that.
Absolutely.
Now, everyone that got tattooed before that and paid full price, you're devaluing the work that you did on them. I think where it goes is the people need to see tattooing as more than they see it now, because they value the car or the bag more than they value the tattoos, which is crazy because you think it would be common sense. One is permanent, one is not. But the stigma behind it is that, oh, it's just tattoos. To a lot of people, not everybody. But that's where the education process comes in, the financing option, making them see that this permanent decision is for life. And if you're only operating on what you have in your pocket now, but not what you might be available to down the road, you're making a lifelong decision based on a very short view. So we need to give them the long view. If you can't do it now, or here's some options. If you can't do it now, I suggest have a higher sense of standard for yourself, because you're gonna wish you did when you get older.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that, because we have switched our online store to that too, right? That all is done in partial payments, right?
You have
can
that
get
now?
a better, yeah.
Do you do it through a firm,
All,
Klarna?
all of them.
Okay.
All of them. So we have 4 or 5 of them. And I have also spoken about this because when I came back from South America, they even buy their groceries on pay terms.
Wow.
And it's crazy. And I have a feeling that this is going to come in Europe, because it starts already there, and it will come in the US, because how it looks, you will have to finance every single thing you do. And it's just that because the costs are rising exponential, right? We put billions of dollars into wars, which are not ours, right? And going from there, instead of working on the infrastructure within the place, so the money has to go somewhere.
Yeah.
And then the only way to keep it going is to make it smaller in the amount spent so people can sustain longer. Ultimately, it's a collapsing story, right? I mean, like
Yeah.
every single time.
This is not good news, but
Yeah.
at the same time, it doesn't make it any less true.
Yeah.
But again, the failures, or not even the failures, the bumps in the road create new pathways, right? And I feel like we'll look back on these times and the industry might even shift in a more positive direction to where we could uplift the way people generally see tattoos. And right now there's polar opposites of just like the high-end tattoos where people appreciate the artwork and they'll pay for it and they appreciate the artist. Then there's the other side that think tattoo artists are divas and you should just take this $60 and shut up, right? And I think that the standard of that needs to raise up. And then overall, the prices of the tattoos even on a low end will raise, but the respect for the tattoos, the options for how to finance them and how to go about it is going to be higher, because they're going to put it higher than their car, higher than their bag, higher than their jewelry or whatever. And I think the more that they could get educated on that, and maybe in the next 3 to 5 years, we might see the industry just go like this and be held at a higher regard, because people realize the permanent expression of tattoos and how it's done and the artist that's doing it and how much work and effort is put into it. It's just something special that's not to be just pushed to the side as something that's like just a luxury and it doesn't really matter. It's like, it's a big deal.
I admire the hope in human beings that you have here.
Yeah.
I don't share that. I'll equate this to plastic surgery. Everyone's educated on plastic surgery. Women get boob jobs all the time. How many girls do you know out there that will price shop for plastic surgeons? And to me, that's an insane point of view. Like that you're talking about, first of all, surgery and this guy's $2,000 cheaper than that guy, and that's why you're going to go to him. To me, that's a horrible way to think about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, unfortunately, that is an American way to think about it. And I don't think that's going to change in the if we apply tattooing to this. I think we're going to get the same. You're still going to get the price shoppers. We're just going to afford people who want the better product the ability to get it. And I think that's the opportunity.
Sure, 100%. And I do think like the boob jobs and all of that is a very short view. They want the gratification of feeling like they're okay with their body now without worrying about like, what if these rupture, they pop, what happened? What about health issues? Do I always want to be like this? Do I want to look like this when I have kids and I'm just bodacious, crazy, over the top type thing? I think it's a very short view, and a lot of humans are going to have short views forever. I still think that the percentage of people that can appreciate more, even if it's just a slight shift of just educating these people that were maybe in the middle and just push them up and they're like, I get it. If we could just improve that number, even though these still exist, it's only going to be better for everyone because there's going to be more quality. There's going to be less regret on tattoos, and the less regret that people have for getting their tattoos, the more that it'll be held at a higher regard. Because if you get older and everyone just regrets their tattoos, eventually your tattooing will die out because who wants to regret all of their decisions? But there's people out there doing work that is timeless, and if that can be more pushed out there a little more, then they could see, I get it.
I think really something I'll follow with Sean on this. I think I go back to a comment what I said before. It's very difficult to unite the tattoo industry. The biggest Achilles heel is to work together, right? So the only way to achieve this properly is that everybody works together and try to elevate the whole industry as who we are, what we do, and where we are. I believe that as 90% of the clients are just price shopping, also 90% of the tattoo artists don't want to have any interest to elevate this in any. And I know I'm gonna get flagged for it. I don't give a shit.
Oh, you're right.
Fucking worry about it. 90% of the tattoo artists don't give a shit. They just want to do their stuff. And I don't say that they don't give a shit about their work. They just don't give a shit about to be more respected or more things. They don't care. They want to do their tattoos during the day, and that's fine. And the top 10% is gonna have to battle. It's the uphill, right?
And listen, I agree. You guys make total sense, and maybe I am coming from a perspective where I'm excited about the way I see things, and I want that to be more of the consensus because I feel it to be right. But that's how anything gets accomplished, I think. And
you're passionate about it. I love it.
So like we might slightly disagree on this, and maybe it turns out like that, or maybe the tattoo industry comes together a little more at a higher percentage than it is now. There's always going to be the stragglers that don't care or whatever. But if the percentage can go up and the general consensus could just go up a little bit, I think it would just be huge for the industry.
And but don't you think we're already doing that?
Yeah,
no, that's
what
what
I'm
I mean.
saying.
Keep going, and then it'll go up.
I can tell you, years ago, I was saying 1% of the tattoo artists. Now we say 10%. So we came a long way,
exactly.
Right? It's just, again, how we focus on it. It's I think it's great that you do what you do because it's a test to time that people do listen. Because this conversation here wouldn't have happened 15 years ago.
Right.
So obviously something has changed and something is in changing mode right now. And I think the more people step out to really take their career to a level where they can talk about, I'm a tattoo artist, that's what it. And I'm saying this now because I come from an era when you said you're a tattoo artist, you bowed your head. Okay, we cannot forget that. Most people will never understand that. It was like, well, what are you doing for a living? I'm a tattoo artist. It's like,
when you go into a bank and apply for a loan, oh my God, you almost had to apologize for what we did.
Stick up for who you are, be who you are, be what you want to be, and take it to the next level. But think about it that you need to instruct the next person to come with you. That's the key to it.
That's the key.
That's the key. If you don't do that, you will be the lone wolf on the top. One man can't win the war, right? But he can initiate it. So
that's exactly it.
Figure on that, and you're on the right track with that. So
right. So if maybe I'm not the one to change the industry, but I can inspire the mind that ends up changing something, right? And has some sort of effect. And just to your point, 10 years, 15 years ago, we wouldn't even have been able to have this conversation. What about in the next 15? And I think the thing that changed the most is information about tattooing has become more commoditized and is being pushed more. And that was always gatekept, right? And we were just talking about this earlier. Yeah. And this is recent. So who's to say that evolution and more people, including myself, wanting to teach the next person and bring them up with these ideals, just by by reasonable understanding, it is gonna get lifted up, and it's brand new. So I feel like this spike hasn't even happened yet.
No, it's the first generation,
Right,
really, right? The
exactly.
first or second generation. We are not like, for my part, right? It's like it's maybe there's 1 or 2 generations in between. I mean, it's not that
Yes,
much. It's
yeah.
nothing. It's nothing in a time of tattooing, right?
Mhm.
I mean, tattooing, the art of tattooing is very resilient from thousands of years, right? So it's not like it made a dramatic change in the last
Modern
10.
tattooing though is
Right.
very young, I feel like.
Yeah, but our time frame as modern tattooing, what we consider right now, it's also very short time frame from the existence from 1874, right? That all
Right.
coming out. So if we go in that direction from the 1900s, the last 10 years were more significant in like development on art form and tools and creation than 1,000 years before.
I think
right?
that was his point. Is
That-
like the
exactly.
last 5-10
Yeah.
years has had such a significant increase in shared knowledge
Yeah.
that the upward that linear
That
curve
is
is
going
going
to
to go
spike.
up. You're going to see that
100%.
that hockey stick go up.
That's
Right.
exactly what I'm
100%, you
Yeah.
know? And that's great to see. It's like I was just remembering that earlier. So hold on a minute. I just spoke about this. Was 1%. Now we take 10%. So we actually
Mhm.
had 1,000% increase, right? Or something. So
And that's it. I think that's what I'm hitting on and stuff. And I want to hold that belief just so that it just feels right to me, you know? And I understand like having hope in humanity to change like the most primal things that are always going to exist in some people. I don't need to change the world, but you could plant seeds that end up growing in the trees that everyone reaps the benefits from, right?
Absolutely.
And it's all about planting seeds. It's like along your way in your life, in your journey, if you're planting those seeds that you leave behind and stuff, you don't necessarily even need to become the biggest or the best or the richest or anything, but whatever you leave behind is really going to be your, again, not using the word, but legacy. And I think that word legacy gets tossed around a lot and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, you want to feel fulfilled. You want to feel like you're a part of something that's bigger than you, something that is growing and not stagnant or moving backwards, which I feel like a lot of tattoo artists think that tattooing is. I get a lot of comments, and again, the haters are like this, but I get a lot of comments that say that tattooing is just going downhill. It's fucked up. Everyone could tattoo now. It's just shitty. It used to be something special and something you could be proud to be a part of and small. But my argument to that is why should the door of tattooing close just after you got into it?
I'll tell you why. Because it's based in fear.
Yeah.
And it's based in insecurity.
Mhm.
And it's based on greed.
Yes, 100%.
Yep.
That's all that is. It's not based on anything of value, anything that they can actually quantify
Yeah.
to other people. It's all about themselves. It's a perspective of selfishness.
right, listen, I have said this many years. This is what we wanted, right? Because I can speak from an era where most of you weren't in the industry.
Right.
This is what we wanted.
Yeah.
And whoever decided later on when it happened that it's not right,
Mhm.
we know exactly what you just said. It was one of those reasons. We wanted it. Otherwise, we wouldn't have had a convention.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you wouldn't have had organizations. Otherwise, you wouldn't have had coalitions. Otherwise, you wouldn't have had national or the museum in Amsterdam. You would have nothing.
Right.
You wouldn't care. You would have kept it in the basement. We did not want that. We wanted to be out. And when you come out to this situation and you show it to the world, there's change which is enacted and other people get interested in it and they're going to take over and advance it. That's it.
100%.
That's it. And that's why I say I'm happy every day to get up in the morning, turn on. Now it's not my laptop anymore. Before it was a laptop. Now it's my phone, and I look at the first new artwork what comes out, regardless from where it is, and I was like, holy shit, we are there again.
Yes.
You know.
And I think
that's-
where you were at then thinking this is what we wanted, that's where I'm at now.
Right.
And that's just a different generation, right? And things are going to be different, nuances are going to be different, but that's the difference in generations, right? That's the different thoughts, the different things that move it forward.
But don't close down the change, because that's what happens.
Yeah.
Because when the change goes too fast, then they close it down. You know, then they say like, oh, we have to go back to the old days. Which old days? It's like the same thing when people talk to me all the time. Oh, I'm going back in the underground. Where, on Facebook? Is that
Dude,
your underground?
Yeah.
It's like, Instagram, right? Like, yeah, sure. And then other people say, I don't know, I was in the underground. I haven't seen you.
Yeah.
I don't understand what you're talking about. It's like, forget that. It's like talking you want to go to 1883 and be in a fucking traveling on a wagon trail from New York to.
They romanticize
yeah,
it, right? And it
it's
sounds
like-
cooler than it actually is.
It's not.
And I talked to Corey Miller about this same thing, and he said a lot of those guys that are like, man, the good old days, what, like tattoo artists used to be like badass and all this stuff. And he was like, the good old days, you want to go back and be a meth head, or just the way it really actually was
Yeah.
not glamorous like it is glamorized today.
It was uncomfortable at best.
Yeah.
And most of the tattooers barely scraped by.
Right. And so
That's just
people are
the way it was,
fantasizing
yeah.
about that and romanticizing it in a way that is just like, oh, this, and they get so attached to the nostalgia of it because they hold it so close to who they are, and they hate seeing the change and stuff. But in the reality, it's better now than it's ever been, and it
Yeah.
will be better in the future.
Absolutely.
And see, I'll even throw on something there. I don't think they hate seeing the change. They hate seeing their placement in the new world.
Yeah.
It was easy to digest when they were at the top of the old world.
Right.
That's why the old world was so great, because I was on top. Well, I'm not on top anymore. I'm
And
in
that's
the
the
middle.
reason why
and
we
that
created-
sucks now.
That's the reason why we created the Never Fade campaign years ago, right? Where we used the artist, we brought the artist in, which really laid the roadmap for us, right?
Right.
The Gil Montes and the Mark Mahoneys and many to mention. It's to make a campaign. It's a never fade, right? Like so, people should remember that was the road to come up, right? As we remember today that people discovered the West, right? Like we know
100%.
that people discovered this country, even though I'm not naming names because I don't want to be in the shithole. Whoever came here first, right? Somebody discovered it. We remember those people historically, right? And that should be done with tattooing as well. But you should not try to restrict the future, because I think
Yes.
it's bright. And when it goes and passes you by, then you should take your place, what I mentioned before, in your cycle. You should become the peer, the supporter, the trainer, whatever it is, the icon. And that's it. And then everybody else will go from there. Tattooing is the best job you can have in your life. I
Yes.
don't know. If anybody complains about it, then you're not tattooing enough.
Or that it's people's inability to change with the times, because I think that they're holding on to what it was. And what I would say to young people, which I say all the time, I'm a big proponent about what you said about knowing the history of the craft so that you could feel more a part of it and feel like I'm a part of something bigger. It wasn't as easy for these people to get to where they are, and because they got here, I can go here. And it's good to recognize that. And then for the older generation, I say be open to change. Don't judge the young people so much, because they're only working with what they have been given in their generation. They only know that.
And they have been given a better time, right?
Right,
Better
100%.
information highway, better tools.
And they might not know that,
Right.
but don't fault them for that, because some of them are just naive at how hard it used to be. So I think young people need to educate on how hard it used to be so they could appreciate what they have, and older people need to be okay with changing with the times, becoming the teacher, embracing the new generation, and they can keep their status, they can keep
Right.
that fulfillment
Right.
all throughout their career.
And then absolutely, there's a lot of parts where people say, oh, they don't even know that. They don't even know that.
Right.
And I always explain it to buying a car today, right? Yes, we were still fixing our cars today. I just turned the key. Okay, that's what it is. I don't need to know how the engine is built. I don't give a shit. Okay, most people, I'm interested in it, but the most people which buy a car have no idea why it rolls.
Right.
They just know to go in, click, oh, it runs, gas, D, boom. If you change the D, the drive to E, they would do it too, because it moves forward. That's what it is. It's like, it's evolution of time.
Yeah.
So it's like nobody needs to know how to make a needle anymore. I'm sorry to burst people's bubbles. They don't.
They don't.
It's a waste of time.
It's like learning coding for a computer.
Yeah, right.
Whatever
For
language
what?
was.
Yeah, so
Right.
we're gonna write all the codes and we do MS-DOS and we do all the fucking shit. It's like, no, give them the perfect tool, give them the perfect environment, give them the perfect situation, and let them create the best possible tattoo they can without thinking that their product fails.
100%.
That's it. Regardless if this is a machine, a color cap, a color, a needle, a piercing needle, jewelry, right?
And the proof is in the work. I mean, all you have to do is
Yeah.
compare the work that's coming out
Yeah.
now to the
That's why
that
the
was
work
coming
is the
out.
way it is.
Yeah.
It's a non-argument.
Mhm.
The work
Yeah.
that's coming out now is by far better than the work that was coming out 20 years ago. Then 20 years before that, same thing.
What are you
Doesn't
saying?
mean
You're
those-
saying my work was shit 40 years ago? That's
Well,
what I just
first
said.
of all,
I have to
think if
spin it
you-
around a little bit again.
I think you would even say your work now is, or wherever you consider your peak, was better than where it was 20 years before that. Right? You're always improving.
I'm not agreeing with you.
Oh, okay.
Just because I don't want to.
Yeah. He's
Yes,
like, I've
of
been
course.
the greatest
Otherwise I would-
always.
Yeah.
Of course, otherwise I will quit.
Yeah.
But
It's
that's the
like-
point. That's
yeah,
the
yeah,
point.
yeah.
The satisfaction is in the growth, and that
Yeah.
should be everyone's point
Yeah,
of view.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a great thing to touch on, and I know we could talk forever about this stuff, but I feel like we got a lot of good stuff out, and I really enjoyed this conversation. I want to say thank you both for coming on here. You didn't have to do that. I'm new in this podcast thing, but I really want this to be something special and something that's respected, so I'm trying to do it the right way. I'm trying to get the right guests, trying to pay homage to the old school that wants to have an opinion on the new school, and then eventually bring in the new school to just kind of blend the two and bridge the gap, right? That's what I want to do. So thank you guys for being on here. Is there anything you want to plug real quick?
I can't wait to have you both on Inked at Sea Cruise, because I think we should flip the script and have Intense maybe interview Mr. Shine over here. That'd be a cool little
Is he
little
coming
fire.
too?
Yeah, he's gonna be there. Maybe
the
do like
fuck
a
is he there?
fireside chat.
I thought it's only like old people gonna be there because
No,
cruise,
I'm
free
not
food,
included in
free
old
drink.
people.
No, we do that. Let's
It'd be fun.
let's do that.
Dude, that'd be a dream come true,
Yeah,
honestly.
absolutely, not a problem. We can do that. We do it right off the boat somewhere. With at this time, hopefully, we get a cocktail because this was a dry house.
Oh yeah, it's all good. We'll do it however you want to do it. However, but I would also like to say I've been using Intense my entire career. All of my shop, we all use the exact same product, same machine, same inks, the same drop system because we like learning off of each other. And if I could tell them, hey, I used my 3-drop of Intense dark gray wash to get this tone, then they could go and apply it immediately right when I tell them. And that's how we operate in my shop, right? We use Super Black and Intense Dark Gray Wash. That's what we use, period. And we used it for years, right? So just saying, it's a huge part of what we do. And it's just super surreal to have you on. Both of you at the same time is crazy. It's a little overwhelming because I look up to you in a different facet. I look up to you in a different facet. But having you together and seeing you guys interact has been super special. So with that being said, that's another episode wrapped up, and this was super special for me. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you got a lot out of it. And yeah, thank you guys again. And that's another episode of the Hero and the Sage podcast. That's a wrap.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good. Great job.
Woo!
We could have talked another hour for sure.